coming up on Friday. A lot to get to on the show today, including your celebrity rundown in just a few. Right now it's 7:20 though. We've got our top headlines in the morning with Seymour.
Big news. I have some important news for you. Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Andy.
K-Man's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy.
Hey, good morning, Blake. How are you?
How's that voice? How you feeling today?
Slow to come, but it's coming.
Yeah, you sound a little bit better than yesterday.
Yes. Just got to keep resting in. People keep calling me.
Yeah. Hope you feel better. Let's start with this big story that unfolded after you were on our show yesterday.
It actually unfolded entirely during the show.
Oh, is that what happened?
It's so crazy. I just cannot believe it.
Tell us the story, because I don't know a lot about it.
So basically, yesterday morning, as the show started, I started to get messages from viewers and listeners to the program who were like, "Oh, did you see that you were tagged on social media in a post from this child's mother and aunt and others saying that they were looking for this 2-year-old?" And I was like, "Oh my God, no, I didn't see that." So, we put the alert out there. We were calling the police in the BRAC, calling the police here, called the regiment who didn't know anything about it. And we're like, "Can you help with searching for this child?" So essentially, the story is that the child got out at 4:30 in the morning after having a diaper change, and that she disappeared. And they noticed her missing shortly after that. And, throughout the entire program, we were, just trying to send out positivity and prayers and everything that went along with it. And then we call the district commissioner in Cayman Brac. And as we called him, to see if he had any updates, because he was part of the rescue effort, he was literally like, "Oh my God, we've just found something and it doesn't look good." And so we knew then unfortunately the young child had been found deceased. And then we got all the details shortly after that she was found on the Iron Shore about a mile away from her home.
How does she get a mile away? Is there foul play involved?
There's so many questions, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, there are so many questions about this. The police have only said there was a water-related death, and that's it. We've asked them if they're investigating it as suspicious in any way, because a lot of people think the story just doesn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wait to see what exactly it is that they're doing. But yeah, there's a lot of questions. There are more questions than answers, really, in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, that is a sad story, and something you don't want to hear. You don't hear a lot of in the Cayman Islands. It's just that's just a tragedy.
Yeah,
something like that.
Absolutely.
Preston over on the Hot 104. He just had a birthday party for his new granddaughter.
Right.
Turned 1, and this little girl was at his birthday party for her.
No. Yeah.
I know. So he was like, "Oh my gosh, we just had her over at the house." So It was just tragic to hear the story.
Yeah. So hopefully, whatever it is that's going on, we're hoping that the police can definitely get to the bottom of it.
Yeah,
and just their thoughts and prayers to everyone, the family. The father lives here on Grand Cayman, and he went over, we understand, to the BRAC yesterday to be there on the ground and stuff like that. We understand her grandmother was actually overseas. And so it's just a very tragic situation.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both have young children. I can't imagine the loss that a parent would feel. So definitely our hearts go out to that family for sure.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll keep you guys updated, though, as we know more.
Any other headlines this morning?
Yes. Green iguana was found in a shipment from Florida. So not like we don't have enough of our own, but this one decided to jump on a ship as a stowaway, and he came in last month. So
they get him?
Yeah. Department of Environment said this was the importance of having this biosecurity. They must have asked him for fingerprint. He couldn't provide one. So came in a Foster's container. They apparently saw the green iguana by the Foster's team. They closed it immediately and called the Department of Environment, who removed it before it could escape. So yeah, we import everything into Cayman, so it's probably not unrealistic to expect that once in a while, a stowaway like the raccoons will come in.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of being vigilant about them, I think. And it's a good thing that he didn't escape. I mean, I don't know if all green iguanas are the same, or maybe he has a separate
Sure, they're different
breed
breed.
or something than the other ones. And next thing you know, we'll have a super green iguana on this island, kickboxing everyone. But anyway, vigilance is where it's at. So big shout out to the Foster's team and the Department of Environment for catching him before he escaped.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations to Hepzibah Angel, who is ready for the Commonwealth Games. She is off to represent the Cayman Islands in the field of boxing. So the Commonwealth Games has 21 athletes representing Cayman, and she's going to be one of the few women in the middleweight division. And Coach William Brereton said that he's satisfied that she's ready for the competition. So good luck to this young lady. And we hope that she does well. The Commonwealth Games this year begin on July the 28th.
Very cool.
Tomorrow in Birmingham, England. Yeah.
Good luck. Do us proud.
Absolutely. Now, did you hear about this? This is kind of a interesting game. Yeah. Interesting situation. But did you hear about the chess playing robot who broke the young man's finger?
I saw the headline. I didn't read the story, so I don't know what happened there.
Yeah. So 7-year-old is playing a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he I think he made a move that he wasn't supposed to make.
And the robot computer says no.
So the robot reached for and grabbed one of his chess pieces initially and discarded it from the board. It retracted, and then he attempted to make another move, which pushed one of his pieces into the same place as the one that was recently removed. So the mechanical claws for the robot just came down towards the board, grabbed the boy's index finger instead of the chess piece.
Oh no! I was gonna say this is how it all starts with artificial intelligence.
I know, right?
Now the robot's getting angry and breaking people's fingers. Next thing you know, they're taking over the planet.
Here's the crazy part: it actually held the finger in place for at least 15 seconds.
That's weird.
Painful. Before two bystanders actually saw what was going on, and they were able to pry open the claws and release the boy. Oh my God.
That's crazy.
That's scary. But you know what? Little trooper, 7 years old, he kept playing. He kept playing after his finger was placed in a cast.
Wow.
Perseverance, I tell you.
There you go.
You gotta love it. And one final story. I don't think we mentioned this one yet, but the pastor who was robbed of over $1 million in jewelry. This one is getting a lot of laughs all over social media. This is a Brooklyn pastor and his wife. They're very much into designer clothing, extravagant jewelry. And so it was all caught on video because they were live streaming the service.
Mm-hmm.
And, the robbers came in. He got down on the ground because, of course, they were armed robbers. So 3 men reportedly entered this Leaders of Tomorrow church on Sunday with firearms, removed his jewelry, which apparently he was wearing quite a bit. So the value between him and his wife is over $1 million.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, now we know where all those offerings are going from the offering plate. Gotta watch out for these characters. All right, catch Sandy right now on Bobo 89.1 FM, and we'll see you tomorrow for Thursday headlines. Have a great day, okay?
Have a good one.
All right,
All right, folks, let's get ready to kick it off here in just a second. I'm Bobo.
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, fever grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
Good morning, beautiful folks. How are you? The voice is kind of coming back. Switched up my meds a little bit. Went to the pharmacy and she said, "Oh, you need to try something else." I said, "Oh, Lord. All right, then. Let me try something else." Doing my little home remedies at the same time. But shout out to my Northside people. Someone messaged me yesterday and they're like, "Sandy, this is what you need to take, some tree, but I don't even know how to get it." So I think I need to go to her house and say, "Hook me up with some of the good stuff." Folks, happy Wednesday. We do have some guests who are going to be coming on in about half an hour for Caribbean Connection Wednesdays. So we're going to be talking about regional content here today. So, of course, the news that is trending all over this island is in relation to this poor child in Cayman Brac who has prematurely lost her life. And there are a lot of questions about this. And I myself, quite honestly, have a lot of questions. So before we get into that, let me just say good morning to everyone. Marshall is here. We've got Evelyn. Wee Wee is also joining us. We've got Dave. He says that he's joining us from Jersey, Channel Islands. Just sat down to have his lunch. Hey, Dave, what did you have for lunch? Is there like a traditional dish in the Channel Islands that you like to eat, or was it just like a sandwich or something? Good morning to Miss Shirley. Jesus, baby Edwards is here. Olivia is here. Diamond Princess, of course. Your Lisa. Wayne, thank you so much. Good morning. So we're doing okay. The voices come back a little bit, so we'll see how it goes. I find that my sinuses are like releasing themselves. So I have a whole roll of toilet paper this morning. That's going to be my box of tissues that I'll be using. Good morning to Felicia. I always feel hard pressed to buy a separate box of tissue because you go through them so quickly. And to be quite honest, they're so much more expensive than a roll of toilet paper, right? So you end up wasting essentially a box of tissue. And, you know, they try to get you into it. Like, they're like, "Oh, it's got aloe in it and it's all fancy and whatever." And I don't know. I've never really been sold on it. I was trying to find my moisturizer because I know last week I mentioned it and some of you were asking me what it is. It's a little moisturizer caplets. And I put it here in the office somewhere, but I can't find it now. But when I find it again, I'm going to show it to you guys. It's around here somewhere. So good morning. Occasionally you might hear me silence the microphone. That's because I'm trying not to cough in your ear. Morning to Jonathan. How are you? He says Terminator chess. And Hervlin says bad robot. Well, you know, it's it's one of those things that makes you go, playing chess with a robot, and he kind of is like, "Nope, that's the wrong move." And you know, the robot is intelligent up to point, but maybe they need to design something in the robot's brain to actually know whether it's a chess piece or a human finger. Like, I would have thought that was pretty straightforward, but there you go. So bizarre. All right. I think the next time he plays chess, he will undoubtedly be extremely cautious and think twice about making a move that the robot. It's weird because I think what happened? Did the robot not anticipate that move? And so thought, "Ooh, I'll just grab that chess piece on the table." So incredibly bizarre. I don't know. So I'm trying something a little bit different with my lighting today. I've actually killed the overhead light. And tell me what you guys think. I kind of like it. Good morning to Wayne. He says that robot is very crazy. You know, I think the robot was probably responding in a somewhat predictable manner. And it was the kid who was being erratic. And the robot just didn't understand it. Jonathan says, artificial intelligence starts with breaking fingers, then wrists, and then necks. Oh, God. It's so crazy that we We fear artificial intelligence, which we have essentially created, because we think one day that artificial intelligence is going to be smarter and faster and better than we are. And so that means that they're going to have a mind of their own and they're going to want to take over the earth. Good morning to Miss Debbie. KK says North Side, hashtag the best of the best. I hear you, the North Side. Love Lopez is here. Sophia, good morning. Yes, when I went to the pharmacy yesterday, the pharmacist said, we could give you medication for like all the other stuff, but the voice, you just need to stop talking. And I was like, I'm trying. And people just keep calling me. So if you called me yesterday and you did not have your phone call answered, that's why. I was like, I can't answer the phone, because even answering the phone and then people are like, oh, I can't hear you. And I'm like, I have no voice. They're like, what? What'd you say? So it was better for me to not answer it and just try to text or WhatsApp and say I can't talk. So good morning, Sophia. Sharon is here. We're going to talk about that situation in back for a little bit. So we do have some guests that I'm actually really excited about this morning who are going to be joining the program, including a former FBI agent. So we're going to be talking about crime in the region, specifically in Jamaica, and what's been happening there with this young lady, Miss Donna Lee Donaldson, and some of the Jamaican professionals wanted to join us in the program to talk about that. So let me just see what else we got here. So yes, that'll be on the agenda for this morning. So listen, yesterday was an extremely difficult day. I think everybody in Cayman now knows why. And it was a situation where I don't know that anybody could have anticipated this at all. Waking up yesterday morning, we were all in such a good mood, and then the day just turned so incredibly tragic with this young child being missing and then eventually being found deceased a mile away from home. And like everybody else, I have questions. I have a lot of questions. And from the very onset, something just doesn't feel right about the situation. And it isn't adding up. You want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And if you don't know something, you don't necessarily want to speculate about it, because speculation doesn't really help. But I must tell you that everybody's instinct, like I've not met a person yet that has found this story believable. And I think that in and of itself says a lot about, what's going on here. If you can't even on the face of it understand how this was possible, how are you to believe the person's involved? And then, of course, as is very, very typical here in the Cayman Islands, people start talking. And the talk includes, information about the mother and about, she'd done this in her past and she'd done this. And, she was warned about, the children before, leaving them in the vehicle unattended while she was in the bar drinking. And so I think at the end of the day, folks, from anyone who knows that sort of information, that perhaps she's been less than, I don't even know what the word is, but, she just hasn't really been entirely responsible, is probably the best word, as it relates to her children. Then that makes you wonder if this was yet another situation of her being irresponsible. And, as a parent, you don't ever want to prejudge a situation because honestly, anything can happen, right? Sorry. And so I never want to be that parent who's like, oh my God, I would never, ever do this. because you don't know. And I feel like, although I'm like super hyper vigilant, sometimes things happen and it defies something that you thought could have happened in your household or whatever, right? So what do they say about, when you say something's impossible, God will show you that it actually isn't, sort of thing, right? So I don't ever test fate by saying, oh, I would never do this, or whatever, because I feel like in certain circumstances things can happen. Now I think that when you're a parent, you take precautions. So good morning to Miss Reba, good morning to Emma. Jonathan is here. So yeah, you take precautions because you know how children are. They don't think the way that we think yet. Sometimes they do things that defies logic. Uh, you know, they don't have the wealth of experience that we do as adults. And so that's why, as parents, hopefully you're a good 20 years at least older than your kids, and you're able to raise them with a degree of knowledge and experience, and protect them in this world, which is crazy at times. And so there's a lot of things that you just do not do when you have children. And children, listen, I remember when my daughter, she's about 3 months old, and I was up one night, and as parents, you are so tired in the night, right? Like, oh my God, you get up with the diaper changes, the feedings every couple hours, with newborns in particular, and you just like not getting any sleep. That's why I don't know how some of y'all could do it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. I'm like, what the hell? You must love to be tortured, because it really takes a toll, especially on women. It takes a toll physically on your body, emotionally, psychologically, like the whole works. And so I remember getting up one night, and of course I was like tired, and I was changing her, and she was looking at me, but it was a real recognition. Like, she was really looking at me. Like, it wasn't just, and the facial expressions on her face was like she understood. And we had this moment. I was like, oh my God. Like, it was just one of those pivotal moments where you're like, oh, this is one of those developmental stages. Like, there was a light bulb that went off in my head because I saw a light bulb go off in her head. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is like a person. Her brain is working. She's like recognizing the stuff. And, so one night around the same time, my mother-in-law was visiting. She came to help. And I always said to my husband, never let this child sleep in the bed. Like, I was very, very, me, a first-time parent. I'd waited for 40 years. I'm like, we got to get this right. I was reading like everything, all the latest studies, and, don't make them sleep on their stomachs and this and that, nothing in the crib. All the stuff that we had been raised to say was okay, that didn't kill you. Because, Caribbean people, they're like, oh, if it doesn't kill you, you're okay. And I'm like, no, because just because it doesn't kill you doesn't mean that it's good for baby. So yeah, I was like really deep diving into doing everything as right as I could possibly get it. So my thing was, do not put this baby in bed. It's a slippery slope. You don't want to start. So one night, my husband was helping out, and of course, it wasn't me that did it. It was him. He's tired and doesn't want to walk across the hall, like literally 10 feet, to put the baby back in the crib. So he decides to put the baby in the bed with us, right? Of course, I'm sleeping. Like, I don't even know what's going on. Super tired. Next thing I know, I hear this thud and this scream. And I was like, oh my God, you killed my baby. I was like, what the, you're right. I'm like, you just killed my baby. What the hell? I'm only having one. Why are you trying to kill her? Well, what ended up happening, unbelievable. He puts the baby in the bed, okay, surrounded by what he thought was a wall of protection, pillows. The baby's between us. Then he had pillows and everything. It was like impossible for this baby to go anywhere. That's what that's what he thought. And what had happened was, all of a sudden, without getting her permission or telling us it was going to happen, she was moving, like really moving. So she wiggled her way up, because he doesn't sleep with his head all the way at the top of the the headboard. He's one of those people that like shifts down the bed, right? Hugging up a pillow, whatever. Like he a lot of times doesn't even use a pillow. So there was nothing between his head and the headboard. So this baby managed to go up and across on his side, not even my side, where there's no way she could have gotten over, but went over to his side and literally fell off the bed. Now, it was a wood floor. This was in her apartment, so the upstairs was wood floor. Thank God the nightstand that was right there, she didn't hit her head or anything on it. You know, she was fine. But you couldn't tell me in a million years that that was possible before it actually happened. I was like, oh my God, what are the chances? And with kids, you know, I always feel like the chances are pretty good because they just find a way to do stuff that really just defies logic at some level. But having said that, and having, you know, realized, and I think babies and children are so incredibly resilient, right? There's still something with this situation that doesn't sit right. And I'm not trying to judge the mother, but something doesn't sit right. And I don't understand how, if there was supposedly, as we were originally told, and this was her version of the story that was being passed on to us, that there was only one exit or one door that the child could have gotten out of, basically. How did the child get out when the boyfriend was supposedly outside smoking? And then the story went from, okay, she's missing from 4:30, and like 10 minutes passed before they noticed her. And then I see the police report actually said, no, it was like 5 o'clock before they noticed her missing. Well, 10 minutes past 4:30 is not 5 o'clock. That's a whole half an hour. So it just seems to me that there's a lot of stuff here that just doesn't add up. People are saying, you know, the company that the mother keeps isn't the best company in the world. You know, her own family members, even during yesterday's program, but I didn't want to go down that conversation at all. But people are saying to me, we are telling you that this young lady, you know, is dabbling in drugs and other stuff that really perhaps does not make her the best parent in the world. And I thought, oh my God. And then we hear that the baby is found a mile from home. How does the baby get a mile from home? Now, it doesn't mean that the baby walked a mile from home. Maybe the baby accessed the water before then, and the currents just pulled her a mile away, and she washed up on the iron shore. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just so bizarre. And I'm also hearing that the baby didn't have any marks. So there's been a lot of rumors, and I hope to put to bed some of those rumors, right? So there was rumors circulating that the child had I don't even want to say, just let's just say an injury that would indicate foul play. That is not true. The child did not have that injury. So if you've heard that rumor, please put that rumor to bed. The baby did not have any marks or signs of anything like that that can be known at this particular time. Obviously, the police should be conducting an autopsy on this child. There were also reports that the baby was covered in seaweed and that made it a little bit more difficult to find her. So some people are saying, you know, maybe somebody was trying to cover the child up. I don't know. There's a lot of suspicion around the boyfriend. Because here's the most bizarre thing in the world. Cayman is so small. But yet, I didn't ever think it was this small, right? The boyfriend is someone who was a suspect. I don't know if he was actually arrested or not, come to think of it, but he's a suspect in a murder case here in Cayman. So it's like, what did you just say? That's who this woman would have hanging out with her kids? Like someone who runs in that circle and has that reputation? So apparently he's in the BRAC, chilling out, hanging out, whatever. And that's who the boyfriend is. Good. Uh-oh. I see someone's trying to call. Let me see what's going on here this morning. So there's just a lot of unusual pieces to this puzzle. And so it does make one wonder, what is actually going on here? The more you hear about the parties that are connected and everything else, the more you wonder. Caller, good morning. One moment. Let me just switch you over so we can hear you.
Finish
Morning.
your introduction.
Morning, caller.
But morning. I said I shouldn't have been interrupting you when you finished your introduction. But just gotta get this off my chest, seeing as I have already invited you. That I hope we are looking for a time of death in the scientific way, not by tapping the baby on the underfoot or whatever to feel how cold it is, but in the scientific way. And at 4:30 in the morning, when I heard that first out of your mouth, I was listening intently. When I heard that, I said, I changed when the baby's early in the morning, late night, early in the night. We don't have it done all that impact. We simply want to get this chore done, get baby the bottle, top it up on the pillow, give it the breast, and get back to sleep. Babies even fussing wanting to go back to sleep. And everything seems so calm and in place. I hope that, my mind is walking ahead of everything that we know the baby is gone, but that everything is not as it seems. Really, really, really. But time of death, sometimes you got to instruct the doctor in Cayman what you need. So I tended out at a time of death, and if you didn't do what you had to do before, it's just too late now. But time of death, and I want to see that pamper. Good morning.
Yes, thank you, my dear.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions, folks. I think the caller's right. There has to be a proper autopsy done that can definitively say if that child was dead for an hour, 2 hours, whatever the situation might be. Because that's going to be critical to seeing if the story has even more holes in it. So I understand that the mother's only been in that apartment for a couple of weeks, right? And I thought about it from the psychological perspective of a child being in a new environment. And again, children can be unpredictable. So anything I say, I want to say that, especially younger children. But having said that, I also know that children are afraid of things like the dark. Young kids, I don't know if she was in a crib, if she was in a bed, or what she was in. But if a young child gets up of its own volition at 4:30 in the morning, I understand the power may have been out in the BRAC because they were having some weather. I find it really hard to believe that a child is going to go out the front door and go for any significant distance, right? So I don't know. Morning, caller.
Morning.
Hello. Uh-oh. So I don't know when the child left, if we're going to buy this version of the story, right? That the child would go out the front door even more in the dark. Say she was a little bit groggy and disoriented. As soon as she went outside, she would have been like, no, where am I going? You would hear her crying, calling for her mom, like something that would have been indicative of, I need help, I don't know where I'm going. I have a daughter who wakes up every single night. I'm still having to sleep with her. She wakes up every single night if I'm not in bed with her, right? And the first thing she does, they're creatures of habit. She knows I'm either in two places. I'm either in the office working or I'm back in my own bed. The first place she comes is the closest place to her, which is the office. And I can hear her. She gets up. She starts making noise. She's like groggy. You hear her little footsteps coming. She's crying. She's like, where are you? And if she sees the light on in the office, she's going to come to the office. Then I can walk her back, to her bed. If she doesn't see the light here, the next instinctual thing for her to do is go and find me across the way. To believe that a child in a relatively new environment would be inclined to walk outside, unless this child had something like she was sleepwalking or something unusual, right? That she would go outside the front door and then disappear. I don't know the proximity from where she lived to the ocean. But if the child was curious, say she was fully alert and she was curious and wanted to go by the water, which sometimes kids do. If this is a legitimate drowning situation, the place that they would have found her drowned is the closest body of water, which would be the pool, which is in the complex. So the whole thing doesn't make any sense, because if you think to yourself, kids love water, right? But kids don't like water in the dark. Kids are inherently, because human beings are inherently afraid of the dark. I think that's one of the few things that we are. There's like two things. I think it's the fear of falling in the dark or something that I think human beings are almost born with, things that you were just afraid of, right? And if that's the case, why on earth would a child, or how on earth, I should say, would a child find its way from inside of the house all the way to outside? This is the complex that she lives in, this Cayman Breakers townhouse. There's a pool right there. Now, mind you, it looks like the ocean in the background. So maybe the ocean isn't really all that far away. As someone mentioned on the BRAC, the ocean's probably close to everything. But in my estimation, a child would have been more comfortable trying to get in the pool if that's what she was doing. But in the dark at 4:30 in the morning, that doesn't make any sense for me for a 2-year-old child to be doing that. There are just so many bits and pieces to this story that just don't fit. And so I think what the community wants, and undoubtedly the family, and I didn't see for myself, but I actually heard that the family members, including this young lady's son, apparently she has an older son that might be 10 or 11 years old, was saying that this baby must have justice and all this other stuff. And I don't really know what I don't know what the 10-year-old or 11-year-old child knows. And the person who read the comment says that he was using profanity directed to the mother. And there's just a lot of anger, which you can expect when a 2-year-old child dies in a very unusual and suspicious manner. You can expect that there will be a lot of questions and people will be angry. Like, how did this happen? And, but I think also at the same time, we all have to be careful not to necessarily jump to any conclusions, but some of the questions that have been put forward here this morning are questions a lot of you have had. People want to know what really happened to this child. Like, there's just too many elements that don't make any sense. So Zambula says, Darlene says all these scenarios can be proven by forensics. And thank God that we have, in this day and age, pretty decent forensics, that if we have the right people doing it, there should be ways to answer these questions. So Alice says, that's true, Sandy. Something just doesn't add up. So good morning to Miss Alice. Zambula wants to know who's the boyfriend. He's, I think he goes by the name of Junior Wright. So he's the young man whose brother was sent to the UK for being involved in the home invasion. And I mean, I don't know if he was actually arrested in relation to that shooting on the beach, but the talk on the street was that that was his brother and that there was a score that potentially needed to be settled. So lots of questions, and unfortunately, not a whole lot of answers. So if the weather was what people are saying that it was, lightning, thunder, rainy, whatever, again, even more of a reason why a child would not be walking outside. A toddler is, again, not going to be trying to go have a dance in the rain at 4:30 in the morning. And when you just change the diaper, all of you know, they say that they were changing her pull-up. So that means that she was in the process of being potty trained, right? And, most children at 2 are pretty well trained. They're probably still sleeping. I mean, they could go until 6, 7 o'clock in the morning without needing a diaper change. So I do find that unusual that she was even changing a diaper at 4:30. Because I tell you what, when my daughter, and again, not all children are the same, but when she was in pull-ups at 2, she might have even been, I can't remember exactly when she got fully potty trained, but whenever she was wearing pull-ups, at some point the people who were assisting with the training at the school said, "Miss, take the child out of pull-ups at night. She doesn't need them. This is more about your comfort than hers," because she would go all night and not have to use the bathroom ever. She never had, once she started wearing pull-ups, she never had an instance at night where she needed to, or there was anything in the pull-up. They were just like, "It's time you take them off and just put her in a regular underwear." Because they're pretty much well on their way when they're using the pull-ups already. So I don't know. It's just a lot of questions. And I think a lot of people just want justice for this baby if something happened to her. Debbie says, "It's hard. I feel for her. My son, now 14, thank God. The baby was 2 years old at the time when he woke up from his bed and went outside after 1 a.m. in the morning. It's just sad for a parent. I feel for her. You looked into it and you looked in on your child this minute, and the next minute they just move so fast." A few years ago, we were at an event with a pool in the middle of the area, and a lot of people were around enjoying themselves. When out of nowhere, my husband rushed and just jumped into the pool. So the comment cuts off there. But listen, we know that these things, like I said, Debbie, from the onset, things can happen. But where's the lock position on the door? How tall is this child compared to that lock? Could she have opened the door on her own? There are a lot of questions. I feel like there are ways to sort of eliminate some of the possibilities in terms of what has happened to this child. Andrea says something is fishy and not adding up. That seems to be the general sentiment in the community. But you can imagine, whatever happened, this mother is undoubtedly grieving. Maybe she just needs a moment to reflect on the events, and then the police need to interview her again and see if they can get any additional information. No one ever wants to think that a mother is capable herself of doing anything to her own child, but we've seen many, many instances where even women who were not capable of doing something to their own child were capable of covering up when somebody else did something to the child, or to make excuses or turn a blind eye to when a child was injured. So one source said this morning, and I'm aware that our guests are waiting, so we're going to change gears here in a minute. But one source actually said this morning that they're looking at some TV footage, I don't know, from the neighbors. And they're saying that the mother is under such extreme stress that she has been hospitalized, which of course you could completely understand. And in addition to that, she was actually commenting on social media yesterday. So she took to social media, and I don't know why, and I say this over and over again. If you're going through a tragic situation, whether your loved ones have been involved in a car accident or whatever, the last thing you need to do, folks, is to be on social media. Just don't do it. It doesn't make any sense for your mental health and your sanity. So apparently she commented on social media because someone said that they believed, there's more to this. And maybe it was the mother or whatever. So she responded and said, "You believe it was the mother, what? Question mark. I'm a single mother with 3 kids. My children are my life. As a good mother would do, I went and checked on her a second time and saw her pull-ups needed changing. I put her back down and I hear a door open around 5 a.m. I got up and she was gone." So this story changes because what she just said, there was no mention of the fact that the boyfriend had gone out for a cigarette smoke when she was changing the baby, supposedly. And that was originally what we heard from sources that were connected to her. So I don't know if she, in a moment, just forgot to mention that or what, but it's just, I don't know. So when you heard the door open at 5 o'clock, who was opening the door? Because the child didn't go missing at 5 o'clock. Let's, I find that hard to believe that half an hour later now you're saying that you heard a door open. So when you hear a door open at 5 o'clock, you don't immediately run outside and say, why is my front door opening at 5 o'clock? My front door doesn't open at 5 o'clock. That's an unusual occurrence. So if I heard a door opening at 5 o'clock, I'd be like, who's opening the door? And you'd run outside, and if you saw the child missing, wouldn't you be calling out to the child immediately to say, where are you? It just, I have a lot of questions. Somebody else says, I think those apartments have stairs, either interior or exterior. Maybe she fell and broke someone, which would not have been visible. 2-story apartments. I also think they have sliding glass doors to the back, like most ocean condos. Well, as far as I know, she doesn't have any appearances of anything broken. So again, there are people who are of the opinion that maybe something happened to her. And she got injured, and then she was moved to make it appear like she walked off a mile to the beach by herself and ended up on the dock. Someone else comments that, Sandra, locals don't swim in that area. It's like Spots Dock or worse. The current would have taken the baby out and definitely not washed up way up above the water, like 1 mile down that way in 3 hours. A few days maybe, but not 3 hours. And again, there's some question here about maybe some CCTV footage. And not only that, but it's rock and iron shore. And a baby is not going to walk across the iron shore, presumably barefoot. That would cut up her feet and all this sort of stuff. And if there aren't any of those marks, again, I don't know. Lots and lots of questions. So I don't know. But we'll continue to someone else says, good morning. I was told that police was called on the mother when she left the same baby in a car to go drinking in a bar. Her other 2 children were taken away from her. So I don't know what the current state of, how many children she has in her custody. But this story of the police warning her, and again, the police probably should have done more than just a warning, but I am aware of this story, and I have no reason to not believe it because her own family members have confirmed that on more than one occasion, she has left the children in the vehicle on iPads and stuff while she was in a bar drinking. And God knows, yes, Cayman Brac is a sleepy little town and whatever, but even in Cayman Brac, you don't do that sort of thing. So this is what someone said yesterday. And like I said yesterday, I didn't really want to go into this conversation, but they said, in reference to the missing child, I'm hoping the mother didn't do anything to her. She's known for leaving them alone and going to the bar, or leaving them in the car for hours while she's drinking in the bar. The person goes on and says, she's family to me, and I'm very, very upset. She's also known to be using another drug that is quite a problem if that is true, and hanging out with the worst of the worst in the Brac, some drug dealers and other coke users. She's been doing this for years before she had the last one, and have several witnesses to this who, as we stopped by the bar, north side, the kids were in the car, sat on the ground in the back with a blanket and with tablets watching TV while she was in the bar drinking. We actually had to curse her out about it. So it seems like it's certainly not the first time that she might have engaged. And I'm not saying that this is what happened this time, but there have been instances of her engaging in less than responsible behavior when it came to her own children. So folks, let's leave the conversation there. And we're going to go ahead and transition to welcoming our guests on the program. Let's go ahead and take our commercial break at this particular time. We'll do our news segment from Kevin, and then we will welcome our guests who are joining us from overseas onto the program so we can talk about regional discussions. Please don't leave. I see almost 500 of you on the social media links. It's really, really important for us to get an understanding of criminology, not just here in the Cayman Islands, but around the region. I think there's a lot that we can learn from others. And, obviously there's quite a few things that are happening in Jamaica at the moment. We've got a former FBI agent and others who are going to be joining us with their expertise today.
Hello, I'm Kevin Watler, and this is your CMR Daily Buzz. A child who was reported missing early Tuesday morning has been found dead. She was found a mile away from where she lived on the Iron Shore. According to the child's mother, 2-year-old Alicity was last seen at about 4:30 in the morning in the south side east of Cayman Brac. Approximately 40 to 45 minutes later, she checked on her daughter and she was missing. Police said at 5:16 a.m. they were notified and immediately began a search. Emergency services, including police, fire, and public works, along with members of the public, immediately conducted searches in the area, and the police helicopter conducted aerial searches. The Cayman Brac Fire Service vessel carried out nearby offshore searches, and around 9:30 a.m. they located the missing child, who was found unresponsive along the shoreline. Emergency medical services attended the location, and a doctor from the Faith Hospital pronounced the child deceased at 10 a.m. A sudden death investigation is now underway. Police continue to look for 2 men who are wanted for firearm offenses. 25-year-old Charles Leonard Walton III and 27-year-old Luisto Estubio Hernandez are considered armed and dangerous. If seen, call 911 immediately, and police warn not to approach them. Police also continue to look for 2 missing men. 53-year-old Noel Paul Manning has been missing since June 24th, and 26-year-old Adrian Williamson has been missing since July 6th. You are asked to contact your nearest police station if you see either of them. Anonymous tips can be provided directly to the RCIPS via their confidential tip line at 949-7777 or via their website. Biosecurity is a term that describes all measures that prevent non-native plant and animal species arriving in a place where they do not naturally occur. The Cayman Islands regularly receives international cargo from ports in the United States, Jamaica, and other places. International regulations for shipments dictate that biosecurity controls be put in place to catch possible hitchhiking alien or non-native species before they leave the port of origin. However, sometimes animals or plants circumvent these controls and sneak into shipping containers anyway. Last month in Grand Cayman, an invasive green iguana was found by the Foster's supermarket team. The stowaway was hiding in a shipping container arriving from Florida. Fortunately, the team reacted immediately, closing the container and contacting the Department of Environment. DOE captured and removed the iguana, and a statement from DOE read, "This was an excellent team effort resulting in the swift capture of this highly destructive invasive alien species, which is already costing the Cayman Islands millions of dollars." The Department of Environment is sending a big thanks to those who helped log shark sightings. Logging the shark sightings helps calculate sharks per dive, which means the chance of seeing a shark on a dive. This gives DOE an indication of the relative abundance of sharks in a particular month or area and is important information for the monitoring of the Cayman shark population throughout the year. Divers, snorkelers, and even boaters who want to help can contact sharkloggers@gmail.com. In other marine news, if you would like to know more about sargassum seaweed and have questions about why it's happening and what can be done about it, be sure to tune into the Cold Hard Truth with Sandy Hale on Thursday. An expert from the University of South Florida is scheduled to be on the show around 9 a.m. and will answer your questions. More information on each of these stories can be found at caymanmallroad.com. Now for your CMR weather update, it's brought to you by WG Charters. Sunrise at 6, partly cloudy skies expected. The temperature rises to the high 80s, but it will feel much hotter than that. When the high temperature is 87 and the relative humidity is at 74% like it's forecast to be, the temperature will feel around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The winds east-southeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour and the sun sets at 7:03. When it cools at nighttime, the temperature falls to the low 80s. Some scattered showers may develop late at night. Now looking forward, similar weather conditions are expected. It's summertime, so those hot days and warm nights with scattered showers are very typical for this time of year. CMR weather updates are brought to you by WG Charters. They offer private boat trips for a great price, so we encourage you to support them. Now for some regional and international news. Jamaica has strengthened its response and prevention of monkeypox as the World Health Organization declared the global outbreak of the virus a public health emergency of international concern. On July 6, Jamaica had its first reported case, and nearly 3 weeks later, another case was confirmed. Dr. Jacqueline Bissasor McKenzie, Jamaica's chief medical officer, says that the ministry has intensified its surveillance and monitoring. Now, the World Health Organization reported that from July 1st through July 22nd, there have been more than 16,000 laboratory-confirmed cases of monkeypox. 5 deaths have been also reported from 75 countries or territories and areas in all 6 WHO regions. A total of 57 families received the keys to their climate-resilient houses in Dominica, and they come just in time to provide safer shelter for predicted above-average hurricane activity this year. According to a press release, the houses were part of a housing recovery project funded by the World Bank following the devastation caused by Hurricane Maria in 2017. The head of Russia's space program said Moscow will pull out of the International Space Station, a move it has blamed on sanctions imposed over the invasion of Ukraine. The Orbital Research Space Station had, until the war, remained a rare area of cooperation between Russia and the US and its allies despite steadily. But Russia's unprecedented international isolation since it invaded Ukraine in February has marked the demise of this symbol of joint space exploration. A Brooklyn, New York pastor and his wife, known for wearing designer outfits and extravagant jewelry, were robbed of more than $1 million worth of jewelry while preaching during a live stream service on Sunday. 3 men entered the Leaders of Tomorrow Church Sunday with firearms and removed the jewelry Pastor Lamar Miller Whitehead, who goes by Bishop, and his wife were wearing. Whitehead encouraged those responsible to turn themselves into police, adding, "I forgive you and I'm praying for you. You know, I hope that God delivers you from the mindset of who you are at this time." That's it for now on the Daily Buzz. Thanks for joining me. Please stay safe and God bless.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much again for joining us. So we've got some guests who are in the studio this morning that we'd like to go ahead and take this opportunity to introduce. So first up is Mr. Jeffrey Tavers. Jeffrey, forgive me if I'm actually mispronouncing your last name, but you can tell me here in a second.
Tavares.
So, Tavares. Yes. Okay. Very good. So Jeffrey, folks, is a radio talk show host himself. with his show's called Make We Talk radio program on Roots 96.1 FM there in Jamaica. It's owned and operated by the Mustard Seed Communities of One More Drive in
Maho Drive.
One
Maho.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. Drive there in Kingston, Jamaica. He's actually by profession a phlebotomist and lab technician. So this is quite a change for you, Jeffrey, to be doing talk show. But hey, we need all experts, right? And he's actually a former employee of the Chrisley Tomlinson Memorial Hospital, which is now Doctors Hospital here in the Cayman Islands. So thank you so much, Jeffrey, for joining the program this morning.
You're welcome.
We also have Mr. Hebert Nelson Jr. So let's go ahead and bring Mr. Hebert in. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. And Mr. Hebert is the chairman of the Crime and Security Regional Committee, Institute of Caribbean Studies at the OAS in Washington, D.C. He's coordinated with international investigative teams, including the DHS, Homeland Security, Investigations, CARICOM, Impacts, and the Ministries of National Security in Jamaica, St. Kitts, and St. Lucia, just to name a few. He's also had the distinction of monitoring elections regionally in Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname, being on the ground and reviewing their defects, if any. So pleasant good morning, sir, to
Thank you.
And we also have, I'm just trying to find the biography here for, yes, Mr. Wilford Radigan. Now, Mr. Wilford, hopefully I got your name correct. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
And Mr. Wilford is a Jamaican-born attorney and former high-ranking FBI official with substantial experience in the areas of government investigation, national security, and international law. So quite a significant contingent this morning, folks. Let's join together and welcome all of our guests. Now, one of the reasons that we wanted to have this conversation, I don't know how familiar, I mean, obviously Jeffrey has worked and lived in the Cayman Islands, so he knows a little bit about
nice second home.
Yes, he knows quite a bit about the Cayman context. But for Mr. Wilford and Mr. Herb there, I don't know how familiar you guys are, Mr. Herb, with the Cayman Islands, but we have very, very close links to Jamaica. So, you know, sometimes we say that the U.S. sneezes and we're the ones who catch the cold. Well, I think the connection between us and Jamaica is even closer than that. You know, I'm not sure what sounds like you got a little pet there.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We're dog lovers on this program, so not a problem. But yes, you know, we have to be keep a watchful eye at a lot of trends around the Caribbean, but of particular interest to us is always what's happening in Jamaica, which is just literally a 45-minute flight away from us. So I'm just going to take him out for a quick second while he sorts out the dog. I know how they can be. They want to be part of the program. But yes, Jeffrey, one of the big, really, really huge pieces of news in the last couple of weeks in Jamaica has been the disappearance of a young lady by the name of Donna Lee Donaldson.
Yes.
Can you bring us up to speed on what happened there and where they are currently with that missing persons investigation and how it's unfolding?
Well, Donna Lee went 14 days now.
Mm-hmm.
She has a boyfriend who is a member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And apparently he went and picked her up at home, which he normally does. And she went to his house. And lo and behold, he ended up calling her mother and saying to her mom, "Have you seen Donna Lee?" And she was like, "No, you are the one who, you know, took her from here. You normally bring her back."
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, he ended up saying, "But I can't find her." Anyway, it happened as that she said to him, "Then why don't you check your CCTV and see what's going on?" He said,
Right.
okay. And he went and checked it and said that, you know, they don't see anything. Apparently, the mother went and reported to the police.
Mm-hmm.
And the police took a little while before they started investigating where Donna Lee is. Now, it has been floated around on social media that they have found a body. It's not true. They haven't found anything. The investigation, I think yesterday, the Jamaica Constable Force, along with the DDP, they're going to have audience pertaining to how far the case is.
Mhm.
Now, we're waiting on that press conference from the Jamaica Constable Force and the DDP pertaining to that aspect of the case.
Right.
They haven't really updated the country pertaining to it as yet. Haven't said anything too much. They only have one press conference and that was it. Jamaicans has been taken to the streets and social media and demanding justice for Donna Lee Donaldson. My talk show program, Make We Talk, been having a series of shows pertaining to the whole disappearance of Donna Lee Donaldson. Yesterday, I have the two Woodley gentlemen on my program, and I also have president of the Jamaica Diaspora Crime Prevention Task Force, Dr. Rupert Francis. We're on yesterday discussing the whole aspect of the case, because it happened as that people are saying that, you know, a truck came into the apartment complex, and a garbage truck came in and some settee was removed from the apartment complex. Now, I will leave that aspect of the conversation for Mr. Rattigan to discuss more on that, because I'm not a person. But before you go, I must say good morning to Dr. Ebanks and Dr. Tomlinson, Mrs. Tomlinson. Go ahead.
So, my apologies. There's quite a bit here that is concerning about this case. And of course, the concept of femicide in the Caribbean and Latin America is something that oftentimes we don't really have a conversation about. And for some people who may not know what femicide is, it's basically the killing of, the intentional killing of women and young girls in your community. And I think probably in most communities around the world, we can understand why women and girls are at particular risk, more so than others. But the Caribbean is certainly no exception to this. Jamaica is no exception. And so often we hear these reports of young girls, young children up to their teens and adults that go missing. Is there any hope at this time? And maybe Mr. Wilford can jump in here. Is there any realistic hope that we might actually find Donna Lee alive and well at this time?
Well, thank you for having me again, and good morning to your listening, viewing audience. We had an interesting conversation yesterday with Mr. Tavares, and several things came out during the conversation, and several things came out afterwards, because I was contacted by a member of the Jamaican Constabulary Force. Now, regarding your question, the longer it takes for us to find her, the greater the likelihood that whenever she's found, she won't be alive. She's been missing now for approximately 2 weeks or so. And the police, they're claiming that they're doing everything within their power to conduct the investigation. But thus far, folks in Jamaica have been dissatisfied. And the reason why they've been dissatisfied, and the JCF, at least a representative I spoke with yesterday, agreed, is because of their past history. Unlike the FBI, when they come out and they say, we're doing an investigation, and they said, look, because it's an ongoing investigation, we are not at liberty to say more, people accept it. Because generally speaking, they know that when everything is said and done, the person, the guilty party, will be found, brought to justice, and set to prison. In Jamaica, and facts will bear me out here, it's unlike that case. It's mostly where they do an investigation, and then you never hear anything about the investigation. Something else happens, and then lo and behold, the investigation that they were conducting, it's forgotten. We're hoping that in this case it won't be forgotten. And I've been assured by the JCF that they're doing everything that they can forensically and otherwise, technologically as well, to locate Donna Lee. But at this point, hope is waning, because the longer it takes for them to find her, the greater the likelihood that whenever she's found, if she's found, she won't be alive.
Gosh. And Jeffrey, we're talking about, has it been 2 weeks now? It's over 2 weeks?
Yes, it's over 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I forgot to say this to you. It appears to be a love triangle that
Yes.
went wrong, wherein the police officer has a baby mother and has Donna Lee as the girlfriend.
Mm.
Now, apparently, Donna Lee went to the boyfriend's house, and
Mhm.
somehow the baby mother, who is a police officer, got whiff of it
Mhm.
that she is at the house. She
Mhm.
came there. What happened after, we don't know. But
Mhm.
it is very heartbroken. It's very heartrending that you know you can claim that you love somebody and then you're in a rage. As we don't know if it's the gentleman who did the act or is the female officer who did the act out of jealousy because she
Mhm.
just had a young baby for the police officer. But it has been going on in our country for far too long. And
Yes.
for far too
And
long.
so just a little bit of a backstory here on Donna Lee herself. She's 24 years old, and she
Mhm.
has been missing, folks, since July the 11th. So we had a viewer to the program who's asking a little bit more about her. So I see now that even on the political front, the PNP has been saying, that there needs to be further investigations. And this is as the JCF says that there's significant progress. And to the point of our guest here, Mr. Wilford, when they say stuff like that, nobody knows exactly what that means because they haven't really been providing any details and they haven't been saying exactly what that significant progress might be. Having said that, I think one of the major concerns here is that there are two police officers who are connected to this young lady. So one, as you mentioned, Jeffrey being the boyfriend, and then one being is she considered the girlfriend or the side piece of the officer? I'm confused.
That's a case to be determined because she's the baby mother. So we don't
Yes,
know if it's Donna Lee's the side chick or the wife.
right. Like who came first, I guess.
Yes.
So it's one of those situations where this young man was wanting to have multiple relationships. And as we have seen in past instances, a lot of times, this just does not end well for maybe one or all parties involved. So there's this love triangle, I guess, is what we're going to call it. One person is now missing for over 2 weeks, and there's just a lot of questions that are being asked. And this young lady apparently was a social media influencer as well. She's a beautiful young lady, my gosh, and only 24 years old. So there's been quite a few. This morning before you guys joined us, we had a little incident yesterday where a young child, a 2-year-old, had gone missing, and then ended up dead, being found dead on the Iron Shore here and Cayman Brac of all places, which is normally a very sleepy island with just a few thousand people living there. So things like this have a way of shocking our communities. And there's some details here where there's a lot of discrepancies. And I think when discrepancies are happening, that makes people really wonder what the true story is. So can we go through some of the discrepancies in this particular case to give people a better understanding of why a lot of people are concerned that poor Donna Lee, if she's found, is unlikely to be found alive?
Well, let me just jump in and say, you mentioned that the police claim that they're conducting this investigation in full force, and then the PNP, the opposition party, said that essentially they're saying that they don't think enough is done. Well, based on my conversations with members of the JCF, they're claiming that they've given clues as to the extent of their investigation. It's just that people, I guess, for lack of a better term, they're saying people aren't sophisticated enough to understand what they're saying, because they said, look, once we say that the forensics team and the technology team, once we say that they're involved, it means that we're looking at her telephone records, we're looking to track it, we're looking to see text messages, we're looking at all of these things. And they're also interviewing people, but they said, look, we cannot come out and just say specifically this is what we're doing, because we're afraid that we might give away investigation. And I understand that. They're claiming, and another thing that they're claiming, by the way, I have an 11-year-old son, and I told Jeffrey yesterday, I said, look, my son, without any information from me, he could solve this crime because there are only 3 people involved. There are only 3 people. And yesterday I was taking my son to football practice, and I told him, I mentioned the case. I said, who do you think did it? And he said, oh, it's easy. It's the girlfriend and the boyfriend. It's and so you ask the question: if this is the case, why haven't people been arrested so far? Now, what I was told is some of the policeman and the girlfriend, his baby mother, that they're cooperating. And once you start labeling them as persons of interest or suspects, they're going to lawyer up. So they said, for that reason, we haven't labeled them at all. But from what I'm being told, they're cooperating. Fact of the matter is that they've been talking to these people now for almost 2 weeks. It shouldn't take 2 weeks of cooperation to find
break
out
the case.
what's going on.
And it's so interesting. It's so interesting that you say, my apologies, Mr. Wilford. It's so interesting that you say that the police don't want to label them, because let's be very, very honest. The community in Jamaica and beyond have, like your son, concluded that there's probably only 2 real suspects in this case. The last person to have seen her alive, which is the boyfriend that we know about. So apparently she went missing around 5 p.m. On the 11th was when she was last seen at Grants Crescent in Kingston 10. And that was at home.
Hold on for me. Sandra, is at Grants Crescent. Is Chelsea Avenue.
I don't know the exact location, but
Chelsea Avenue, the houses, the apartments at Chelsea Avenue. That's where she was last seen.
And that was the apartment that she shared with the boyfriend.
Yes, that's Chelsea Avenue. That's his apartment.
That's his apartment. All right, and she was last seen wearing a black romper and black slippers, is information that we have from online media. So listen, just amateur crime fighting 101. And the vast majority of cases, especially when it comes to women, and they go missing or they are murdered or something happens to them, the first person you need to look at are the persons who are closest to them, including boyfriends, spouses, and maybe by extension, other family members. So that alone kind of would put the list down significantly to who potential suspects are. So despite the police not wanting to label these individuals, Mr. Wilford, I think everybody in the community has already labeled them. So what sense does that make even?
May I? But Sandra, the question needs to be asked: in which modern democracy an investigation like this is going on, and the people who in question is still on frontline duty? If I didn't go on my radio,
they've not even been suspended from work or placed on any kind of administrative leave.
Hold on a minute. I went on my radio program, and I was the one who started creating havoc and start talking about it. So this is nonsense. You cannot have a person or persons. They keep on telling the people of our country that they don't have any suspect. There's nothing there. And for the People's National Party to be coming out and saying X, Q, Y, Z. Look how long that has been going on. The Jamaicans took to the streets and say enough is enough. The hypocrisy of these political parties in our country, who has no respect for and regard for the Jamaican people. They come out and they start talking about investigation. Sandra, listen to me. We are in a crisis in Jamaica. And I know a lot of people going to say, Jeffrey, how you gone from other stations talking now? I am not going to hide it. Jamaica is in a crisis when they come on to gun violence, they come on to crime. I said it yesterday in my program. The criminals are becoming a clear and present danger to the national security of the citizens of Jamaica and also the police force. And I want to apologize about it.
Yes. Mr. Nelson, I want you to jump in here on the conversation as well. What is your take on this? I mean, there are accusations in the community that there's some sort of cover up by the Jamaican Constabulary Force, because obviously the 2 main suspects, are 2 of their own.
You may want to look. I'm an intelligence analyst, by the way, by trade, and I've worked with the U.S. military as well as the the intelligence community here in the U.S. Now, just to look at the overall approach to this case, the JDF not the JCF, Jamaica Constabulary Force, for a very long time has been the antagonist in a lot of situations. So when you're looking at how well they've initiated an investigation or any probes into any case, similar cases, it harkens back to the fact that they don't normally work on the concentric circle investigation paradigm. They don't work from the inside out. So what they've been doing, they've waited in this case. Now, just like that child that was found on the beach, Jamaica has a thing called the Nanda Alert. I mentioned this yesterday in our program. And the Nanda Alert was put into effect as law because of the fact that there's a young adolescent girl who went missing. And correct me, Jeffrey, if I'm wrong. And when she went missing, and they reported it to the police and asked for assistance, police said, no, we gotta wait, I believe, 24 hours. So the people in the community started organizing after about 12 hours or so. And they looked and they found the girl dead, I think, like the next day or so. So what we're dealing with here in all cases of missing children especially is you have to act, and you have to act immediately.
Yes.
Right? It's okay if you gather all the troops together and go looking and they show up someplace else. That is the relief. But the fact is, when they don't show up someplace else, then you got a problem. And the longer they go missing, then you know it's very onerous. There's no way young people who are not responsible for themselves should be missing for that long. Now you have a young lady who goes missing, and she's in a love triangle. And her mother calls the police and reports it. I said yesterday that the police goes into this defensive posture because it's one of theirs, and they don't want to start accusing or saying anything. And so they wait.
Yes.
And the fact that they wait, and then the rumors went flying that cleaners went up to the apartment and that the garbage truck came and picked up garbage bags, a private garbage pickup, by the way, not the regular garbage pickup. Now, those two items alone is what will help to eventually convict somebody. Whether it's the police woman who is his girlfriend and has 2 kids for him, or whether it's him.
Or the truck driver.
Or the truck driver would be accessory.
It's probably an accessory after the fact. Yes. So this is indeed quite interesting, because 2 takeaways start from what you've just said is that forgive me, I'm fighting a cold at the moment, but time is always critical. Number one, because the longer you wait, the longer, the worse the situation is likely to be in terms of even finding someone alive. But secondly, the preservation of evidence is also critical.
Yes.
Because, if, for example, she has been disposed of at this point, her body would be in a severe state of decomposition, and there might be some forensic evidence that as a result of that would be lost. So time is definitely of the essence. And in the solving, I think, of any crime, I think officers now appreciate the necessity to hit the ground running. What was interesting about this is she actually wasn't reported missing until 2 days after she actually went missing, because the boyfriend didn't report her missing, which I think is highly unusual. It took her mother calling the boyfriend to say, "Where's Donna Lee?" So that's that's 48 hours at least of extremely critical, in the timeline, an extremely critical period. And that alone makes you wonder, you know, listen, I have a husband. God knows I'm missing for 5 minutes. He's wondering where I'm at, right? But, you know, it's unusual for you to be in a relationship with someone and not having heard from them for 2 days, and you don't raise the alarm. You don't think it's unusual, especially as a police officer. You don't think, wait a minute, Donna Lee hasn't messaged me. She hasn't WhatsApp me. She hasn't called in 2 days.
But the funniest, but Sandra, if I may come in, the
Mhm.
funniest thing they told them at the house. That the
So they
same,
actually
the
live
same
together.
apartment.
Yeah, I mean that's even worse.
There you go. And he's gonna say that she left. And I'm
Wow.
like,
And then when the mother said, "Where's Donna Lee?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know." Like it seemed a bit nonchalant from, you know, the reports that we have read. So, folks, we've even had reggae legend Freddie McGregor lending his voice to this last week, saying that more has to be done, and you know, speaking out on this that she needs to be found, and the police appear to really be dropping the ball. So we have Katiana Smith, who is his baby mother, and there's some discourse about them having had some sort of an argument with this young lady at his apartment complex right before she went missing. So, do you have any of the details about that, Jeffrey, that you can delve into a little bit deeper? So, was this on the day that she went missing that neighbors actually heard this argument taking place?
to be honest, Sandra, I don't know. I heard about the argument that what we're hearing and what I'm gathering so far, and it's unconfirmed because I can't prove it, is that the boyfriend left the apartment, what they say, and he went somewhere. Now the Donnelly was at home. Obviously, she may hear the doorbell or something wrong, and she came, opened the door, and maybe the girlfriend just pushed the baby mother push herself in because somebody gave the girlfriend a call or something and say, hey, he has the girl at the apartment. So she went over there, and it is said that it's she and two other police officers that went over there, if my memory serves me correctly. You say right again? That two you know, other members of the police force went over there with her. Pardon me?
That's what's been reported. But
Right.
Sandy, there is something else I'd like to throw out for consideration, and that is if Donna Lee hadn't been a social media influencer, and I'm an old guy, I don't know what the term means, but apparently it sounds like somebody who has a lot of followers, right? Somebody who's very popular. And if she hadn't been from a prominent family, and I said hadn't, and probably I shouldn't use the word because it sounds like she's dead when I use the past tense. But and if she wasn't a beautiful person, do you think we would be having this conversation today? And the reason I ask that is this. Since January 1st until yesterday, approximately 850 people have been reported missing in Jamaica. So some people are asking, well, why Donna Lee? What about the people from the inner city communities? You know, don't we care about them as well? And the police, they're in a fix. They're having a difficult time trying to explain that. Why is it that they're putting out so much resources to resolve the issue when you have 850 people before this? Now, they also told me yesterday that as far as the missing persons report is concerned, and I don't know who's telling the truth, but they're claiming that they started investigating this the day after. And again,
No.
that needs to be vetted out in the press conference that they're gonna have. But I don't know. That's what they're saying. Their story is different from what we're hearing.
I mean, to your point about why Donna Lee, I guess that is something that, to be quite honest, happens all over the world. You know, the higher profile someone is, obviously, the disappearance of anyone who's seen as a celebrity or, you know, in even the social media celebrity space will definitely get more attention. And it's a fair point on even the, you know, the social ethics of people who disappear and of criminology, that not everyone gets equal justice. You know, it's not really, even from the perspective of an investigation. In the United States of America, for example, we often hear of African Americans who go missing and their case gets nowhere near the attention in traditional media and CNN and Fox and whatever. But, you know, let a Caucasian person go missing, and all of a sudden the FBI is called in, all the national agencies, like everybody is on it. And quite interestingly, I want to bring in a side conversation here. We know that that earlier in the year, a young lady by the name of her first name is escaping me now, but Marcano went missing. Her father's Trinidadian, and they live in the Miami, Central Florida area, right? So she went missing in the Central Florida area. Unfortunately, you know, she ended up, Mia Marcano, she ended up being found dead eventually. But the sad thing is the police, once again, Caribbean, African American descent, the police really dropped the ball, so much so that the last that we reported on it, one of the law enforcement officers had actually been suspended. And I was watching a YouTube video a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't realized how much they dropped the ball in terms of the investigation, that it was the family who actually, in real time, this report went back and looked at the footage. It was the family who was doing the investigation for the police. So they were the ones who identified the suspect and saw him, and they were recording him moving this blanket out of the apartment complex into his car. And you could hear in the background, like, oh my God, that's Mia's blanket. That's Mia's blanket. They basically solved the case for the police, and the police were not doing what they needed to do. And, you know, it was the insistence of the family why I think sort of in the later stages, they eventually asked the FBI to assist, and they brought them in as sort of an independent agency. And then they were able to recover and find her body. And we knew how, unfortunately, that situation ended. The young man ended up committing suicide, and, you know, the case for all intents and purposes has been closed. But as family members, when we sit back and we see, you know, whether our family members are victims or we've got friends or whatever that are victims of a situation like this, perhaps, Mr. Wilford, you can tell us from a policing perspective, and I'm sure we can get some additional feedback. What should you be doing to even ensure that the police do their job, as sad as that sounds? I mean, it's like you have to raise the alert, you know, for the community to get involved.
You do. It's you know, they have a phrase in Jamaica, in Patois, but I'll translate it in English. It says that if Sandra does, it's a, if sick man, meaning that if a sick person doesn't care about his treatment, then the doctor won't give a damn, right? Mm. And so if you're the family member, or if you're the family of someone who's missing, and you don't show interest, then it's going to be swept away like 150 cases at some point in time, because something else is going to happen. I mean, somebody's going to get shot. Some other people are going to go missing, and so it's going to get swept under the rug. So what you have to do is you have to keep constant pressure. What I would suggest to the family of Donna Lee is that if they can afford it, they can get someone to subsidize it. They need to get a team of investigators in there. Mm-hmm. That will add pressure to the police, because they know that people will be looking over their shoulders. And also they need to get a PR team in there so that they can keep the story on the front page, keep it relevant, keep it alive. Because the moment you stop doing that, then it's just going to be swept away, and something else will replace it, and pretty soon it will be forgotten, and it will just become another footnote. So you have to keep pressure on the police. And when I say pressure, it has to be apparent, it has to be physical, it has to be seen. It can't be just a social media post. I mean, you have to have live bodies up there having their own press conferences, talking about what evidence should have been seized, how it should have been processed. I guarantee you, Sandy, mark my words, if they arrest based on what I'm hearing so far, if they arrest any of these two people, a defense attorney is going to raise issues about the collection of the evidence. And a lot of criminals in Jamaica have gone free simply because of inadequate work conducted by the police. And mark my words, this is going to be the case.
Wow. But Sandra, the question that we need to ask ourselves, and Wilfred Rattigan can speak about this. Would the government of Jamaica, along with the JCF, allow any other private investigator to come in and investigate a case like that? If
I
they
guess,
won't
I guess
pull
they
up,
can't stop. They probably can't stop anyone from doing so, but not to say that they'd be working alongside them. But certainly, if they find, and to his point about having your own press conferences and stuff, if they find information that the police have yet to uncover or certainly have it disclosed, then essentially what you do is you embarrass the police by demonstrating their lack of competence and proper investigating.
but Sandy, if they won't even allow Jamaicans who have law enforcement experience, the same Wilfred Rattigan applying for the commissioner of police job, and they turn him down. The current present Minister of National Security, Harris Strang, was in a Zoom meeting with some members of the diaspora, and they asked him some questions pertaining to the crime fighting in Jamaica. Why they don't get external help, and he categorically told them he won't get external help. He don't see the sense of getting external help.
Sandy, here's a problem that they would face, and you hit the nail right on the head. If a group of investigators outside of Jamaica, the family decided to have a group of investigators come in, I mean, qualified investigators, and if the police department said we don't need them, but yet they cannot arrest anyone or cannot convict anyone, can you imagine the amount of pressure that would be brought to bear by the public? Because they would say, wait a minute, you can't even solve the case. And here it is, we have qualified people who offered to help you, and you turned it down, and now you have no conviction, no arrest. They might as well just disband the JCF after that. They might as well disband it.
Wow. Well, let's bring some of our listeners into the program. We're still going strong with over 400 people on the live stream. And of course, we're also on radio, Bobo 89.1. And undoubtedly, we have tons more there who are listening as well. So Marshall says the baby mother killed Donna Lee is his opinion. Love triangle don't always end up well. Donette says, you're so right. It's a love triangle, crime of passion. Now focus on finding the blind girl, Jasmine Dean. She was a university student. So again, to the point that was being made is that there are a lot of people, as you say, over 800 people this year alone, only half the year is gone, that are missing in Jamaica. A lot of them are young women and girls. So, I mean, very, very sad. So Andrea says the Jamaican JCF is so corrupt that they're worse than the scammers. They're covering up for the 2 police officers. Cara says, I feel it for her mother and family. But from the time she found out there's a baby mother in the picture, she should have just cut and gone. She was still young and had so much going for her. No man so sweet that she couldn't have just cut him off and make a proper life for herself. Either someone who would have truly loved and appreciated her. So very sad. So, I mean, Cara, it's an interesting comment, but it does smack a little bit of victim blaming. Because sometimes you are part of a situation, part of a love triangle, and you don't even know that you are, because, your partner is so good at deception and lying and everything else that you may not recognize really the danger that you're potentially in. And I'm sure had she known that this was going to be coming, she would have made some different decisions. So Shanice says they both are as important as each other, love triangle or not. Andrea is asking about the truck driver. So there was a bit of a situation with the truck driver actually providing, I don't know if he released it, but there was some recording that was released where he was speaking to the male officer, where apparently he called him and was asking for him to retrieve this sofa that he had discarded for him. Can you give us a little bit more details on that exactly?
What the voice note that was released? I don't know who taped that voice note, but the voice that was released, the officer is saying to the truck driver, I want you to go back and retrieve the sofa or the settee or whatever I want to call it. And he was saying, who is this? And the officer, remember man, Rocky's the one who introduced me to you or whatever. And then he said, okay. And the truck driver said to him, what is going on, man? Because the cops came here and took my truck away. What's going on? And he was like, what do you mean they come and took your truck away? And based on how he's speaking, you can hear he's trying to give him a code to go around the whole situation. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know if the police has spoken to the truck driver. As you know, the JCF is not really saying to the people of Jamaica, "Hey, we have spoken to this, we have spoken to that." All we know that voice note release that went out viral.
Yes.
And yesterday, we were told in a news release that the female officer has been removed from frontline duty. Her attorney is asking for protection from the JCF from her, that she need, a bodyguard to go around with her because her life is at risk. So, based on all of that, we don't know what is going to come out of the press conference between the JCF and the DDP going to happen today. We're waiting on that. And if that comes through, Sandra, I'll give you a call pertaining to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is unusual. Again, the voice note, just as people who are, outsiders watching this situation or, getting the bits and pieces of information. Number one, it's unusual that someone would call you about some sort of sofa or settee or whatever that was discarded and then ask you to like bring it back. Like you don't make the decision to throw out a piece of furniture and then change your mind about the movement of the furniture, potentially days later. So that was very strange. And I also found it odd that the young man was like, who is this? Like, I don't know how much furniture he's moving, but normally when you have clients that are making requests of you and a client calls you, it's going to click like, oh yeah, I just moved a sofa for you. But it seems like it wasn't really a sofa that was moved at all. Has anyone checked the CCTV footage at the apartment complex to see whether or not the delivery man actually picked up anything that was a sofa? Or was it just, something in a bag?
What the
There's
police
just so many questions.
What the police is saying that they have over 20 hours of CCC footage. They haven't said anything to the nation. Go ahead, Mr.
The key to that is that the mother was the one who initiated that argument to the police officer when he says that her daughter was missing after 48 hours. And she said, well, have you checked CCTV? So that kind of forced the police to go grab these CCTV tapes and start checking it. And the unique thing about that phone call was we don't normally track down our garbage men and get their personal numbers to call them. So I believe the police officer was fishing. He was trying to find out what did the police ask him, right? And how did the police conduct the search in his vehicle, right? He wanted to talk, so he brought the sofa as a conversation piece, hoping that he would go into other things. But this guy was smart. He made sure he identified himself, so he had him on tape. And then he, proceeded to deflect any further questions that he might have had, because then he would have drawn him out if he was more direct, and he was smart enough not to be direct. But again, every little piece comes together as evidentiary material.
Yes.
And it just depends on what they find on the CCTV. And if any other anything else, if the weak link is the woman and she confesses, she's gonna bring this other guy down with her.
Yes.
Or if he,
and normally, even here in the Cayman Islands, we've seen this happen, is that women are normally, when it comes to criminality, and certainly Mr. Wilford, from an FBI perspective, you can tell me if this is true, women are normally seen as the weakest link in terms of their inability to really be hardcore killers. At least that's what we believe, right? And so they're the ones that you try to crack first when you have a case where a woman might have been a participant in a crime, or she was potentially the instigator, or maybe even if she was someone who assisted after the fact. You go after the woman first, and you try to, appeal maybe to her sensibilities as a mother. We know that this young lady has a young baby, a young child. And as a woman, a woman is now missing in this situation. So you do your best to try to put pressure. You put the pressure to bear really on the woman in the situation to see if she will crack first. and then assist the police further.
I don't know the psychology behind it, but go ahead, Herb. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying pretty much I believe that might be the tactic here, because they took the case from the Constant Spring police station, which is in the area where this occurred, and they have a special team on it. So they have noted that there's public interest, high public interest here. So they had no choice but to make the switch. But the problem is, no matter how early or late you might have come into the case, you let evidence, forensic evidence, disappear. And if you don't recover a body, it's going to be very, very difficult to make a case.
But hold on there, Sandy and Mr. Will. It's going to be very difficult to have a case, yes. But some may question and argue, how is it that they had a case against Entertainer Vibe Cartel? There wasn't anybody found. Only tape conversation. So if the conversation between the truck driver and the so-called police officer is coming to evidence, can't that say, okay, question the truck driver, what did he bring to where? What did he collect from where to where?
Yeah, but in a case
going
like
back to
that,
Sandra's point,
the quality of the phone call with Vibes Cartel might have been deeper than what is on the tape with the truck driver. I'm just asking. You see, there's a difference. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of evidence. Go ahead, Will. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was saying, going back to Sandra's point, I don't know the psychology behind it. I'll leave that up to the professionals. But you're absolutely correct. We would lean heavily on the female first, because they to shall we say, spill the beans faster than males. Also, one of the things that we would do is we would offer a plea, and the way it works is the person who convinces first, that person is going to get the deal. You know, remind people, and so that could have been tactic that should have been employed, but it should have been employed early. You can't wait until now when and correct me if I'm wrong, Herb and Jeffrey, but my understanding is that both parties have lawyered up already.
Yes.
And if they've lawyered up, it's going to be difficult. Because if you don't have the forensic evidence, you don't have the body, and you have no confession, you have no case.
But you must also remember, Wilfred. Remember,
yes,
that she told the police that she will not answer any question. And based on the Constitution of Jamaica, you can't force a person to answer any question without an attorney. Am I correct, Wilfred?
Yeah, and that's why the idea of a confession that should have taken place with investigators early in the case. Once you've identified the people involved, that's when the president will appear. Not now, because she's lawyered up now. She's not going to talk now. Another thing, Sandy, is that we were on the show yesterday with Jeffrey, and I started getting a whole bunch of text messages, and there was one that was very, very telling. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but a few weeks ago, I believe 3 policemen killed a citizen simply because they tried to bribe him. I think it was for 100,000 Jamaican dollars. He didn't pay, and they killed him. 2 of them have been caught. 1 left the island. But a listener yesterday wrote to me and said, we are more afraid of the JCF than we are of gunmen. And the reason for that is because the JCF's motto is protect, serve, and reassure. So there's a belief that you're going to be protected by the police. There's no belief that you're going to be protected. So you that's par for the course. So they're saying, look, the people who are supposed to protect, serve, and reassure us, they're killing us. So we're prepared for gunmen. We're not prepared for the protector of peace and safety and stability in the society to get rid of us.
To be the problem,
so,
yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
And that is why, Sandy, if I may, that is why the level of respect for the security forces in Jamaica has dropped more than, I would say, 10%. It has gone all the way down. There's no level of respect for the Jamaica Constabulary Force. As a matter of fact, there's no respect for the government of Jamaica anymore by the people of Jamaica.
Yes.
The
And we
people
see this. I see Marcia has a comment here. She says, drink water and mind your own business, Sandra. You know, live in Jamaica or not one, get another topic, please. So this is really interesting. First of all, this is Caribbean Connection Wednesdays. And Marcia, obviously, you've not been paying much attention to the program because for years now, since we've had this show online, we've had Caribbean people come in from, whether it's Miss Jacqueline Charles from the Miami Herald talking about, Haitian issues and, things from Honduras and all over the world. So a lot of people, they want to separate and believe that they live in isolation. As I said at the onset of this segment, we are so intrinsically connected to Jamaica as a community. Most of us have Jamaican family members. My husband is Jamaican. My grandfather, my mother's side was a Jamaican. So technically, I'm at least a quarter Jamaican from St. Elizabeth. This mentality that people must just worry about what is happening in their borders is not only small-minded, but it's also incorrect. So just over a week ago, we arrested here in the Cayman Islands, one of Jamaica's, they say, and the St. Catherine area, one of the biggest gangsters who's wanted for at least 3 murders. He was here illegally in the Cayman Islands, and our police officers arrested him. So if you sit back and you think that what happens in Jamaica is none of my business or nobody else's business in this country, it really demonstrates, Marcia, unfortunately, how incredibly small-minded you are and that you simply don't understand how everybody is interconnected, right? So the guns that are flowing into the Cayman Islands, we know are coming in by and large on Jamaican canoe boats, as well as illegal drugs and illegal individuals, as this man would have entered the country. Day before yesterday, we had a Jamaican man who'd overstayed in this jurisdiction for 10 years. And he was trying to leave the jurisdiction to return to Jamaica on a passport of someone who was murdered, And then he says, yes, well, he paid $3,000 for that passport. So I really want to encourage people. It's a degree of living with blinders on for people to think, oh, well, I don't live in this area, so it's none of my business. And it speaks to our general mentality about how we treat criminality in our communities and whether or not we're serious about addressing the issues that influence the criminal element in all of our countries. So, if you don't like the topic, Marcia, you obviously have the option of not listening to it. That's what free choice is all about. You can change the dial. You can go listen to something else on social media, but we're not gonna not have a discussion that's as important as this. And the broader issues are being discussed here. Mistrust of the police. Over 50% of the Cayman police force, probably closer to 75%, are Jamaicans. We've seen police officers who have come here who were wanted for murder, a murder case. He eventually got off, but he was wanted for murder in Jamaica. Our police commissioner at the time, and whoever the HR manager was, did no background check. So he was able to leave the jurisdiction of Jamaica with a pending charge over his head, come to the Cayman Islands, apply for a job as a police constable, and get hired. So these are the ways in which, folks, we are connected. And this is the overflow of violence in our communities. We've heard of, I can point to so many, the murder of Estella Roberts, who was, a local women's advocate many, many years ago.
I remember her.
You remember? Marketing manager at Cable Wireless at the time, horrifically sexually assaulted, raped, murdered, had her body and vehicle burnt out in the Barkers area of West Bay. Unfortunately, that crime was committed by 2 Jamaican men. The first thing they did was jump on a plane and leave the jurisdiction. One day thought things had kind of cooled down and calmed down. Then they came back, not realizing that our police force was monitoring them the entire time with the technology, the pinging of the phones, and they knew when her phone was turned on. And, I really want to encourage people to not be so small-minded. When we talk about what happens anywhere else in the world, it's because it can and it does have an impact on us here in the Cayman Islands as well. We're not an island unto our own. We can no longer claim that we're the island that time forgot. We are a part of the broader Caribbean community, and we're a part of the broader village that comprises the entire world as well. So I just wanted to address that issue because, when I see people making comments like that, I really hope that you will, explore why you think that way, you know? So good morning to Debbie. Good morning to Sue. We have Miss Barbara, Donna Lee. She's saying, "Who's Donna Lee? This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Time to act, Jamaica." Well, again, Donna Lee is a 24-year-old social media influencer who's missing. After 2 weeks, there's been very, very little movement on the investigation as far as the general public can see. So Andrea says enough is enough now, and Donna Lee's situation is the breaking point. So sometimes, gentlemen, you can tell me what your opinion on this is. Sometimes it takes someone as high profile as Donna Lee to bring these conversations to the table, right? And we start to look at other cases, like how is it that women can just go missing and disappear in our communities, and we're not asking serious questions? Why are women subjected to so much violence in the homes and in the communities? They're being assaulted sexually. There's a whole other area of resorts being, with visitors coming to your country and they're being targeted. Those women are being targeted because they're foreign nationals and because they're unlikely to stay past whatever the 2-week or 1 week or weekend vacation stay to try to follow through with the prosecution. So a lot of criminals see them as easy prey. There's just, women are so incredibly vulnerable in our communities. And I think that that's a broader conversation that we need to be having as well.
Sandra,
I just wanted to say this to you. At the Institute of Caribbean Studies here in Washington, D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
in every June we have Caribbean American Month.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have addressed each of the last 3 years has been the human trafficking and police misconduct. Now, in the human trafficking arena, you'll see that the Caribbean is 1 million square miles, got probably well over 35 to 40 million people.
Mm-hmm.
And at all times, you have over 300 kids that are at risk, right? So we have lost a lot of kids to trafficking. We have lost a lot of kids specifically through sex trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we have predators that leave the U.S., Canada, the U.K., and other European states, and they come, and even within the Caribbean itself.
Yes.
So myself and an attorney out of Trinidad submitted a request to a U.S. senator here in the U.S. to have the Western Hemisphere, the entire database of predators be created so that we can exchange this information with each island or within Latin America and North America. And, the last police commissioners meeting, I know that idea was tabled, but we haven't heard anything else on it. Now, when you talk about the JCF, we came here to Jamaica in 2016, and we made a proposal for intelligence-driven investigations. We also spoke about having specialists in each area of policing where we could come in and help with training. But then we were rebuffed. We were told that their senior officers are lawyers and engineers and a variety of different skills. And they've refused since then, no matter how much things are going wrong, with all these degrees, they've refused to work with us. Now, when you talk about reputation, about 7 years ago in, I believe it's Buff Bay or Bull Bay out on the Portland coast of Jamaica, you had a mother who used to take her kid and leave the kid home as a latchkey kid. In other words, they come home after school, kid is home by herself. She found out the kid was bringing in unsavory people into the home or other, kids. And so she decided she would leave the child at the local police station.
Mm.
And in a similar case, that child went missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the end result from that case was that there was the child had gotten pregnant, unbeknownst to the mom. The child went and told the inspector in charge of the police station.
Oh, wow.
And in order to avoid that officer being prosecuted, because we deal with underage person here,
Mm.
a female police officer at the station went, accosted the young girl and said, "Look, you're getting my friend in trouble, and you don't need to do that. We can work this out." In other words, you're suggesting getting rid of the baby, something to that effect. The end result was the young girl did not go along with her plan. And they ended up killing this young girl and throwing the body into the ocean, which was near.
Oh my God.
So the JCF, I could go on and on. There was another officer who, as a constable, got a young girl pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept moving him from area to area.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was 40 years old when he passed away. Only to find out he had over 25 kids in various areas. And that all these mothers were now asking for monetary support from the JCF because the officer had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he was somehow doling out money to these various different baby mothers. But in a situation like that, officers under that kind of pressure are open to graft and to other illicit means of operating. Officers come into the JCF because it gives them a way to operate without being seen. Operate right under your nose, and nobody pays attention because their fellow officers may be doing their own thing as well. So we have the corruption that we have argued against from time to time. And this is the bane of the JCF.
Yes.
Finally, I'll just touch on one last thing, is that 3 years ago, they disbanded the mobile reserves at Up Park Camp. That is basically a SWAT team that the U.S. funded. And the U.S. came down on them like a ton of bricks. Because that mobile reserve team was found to be running guard duty on different construction sites instead of training or doing the jobs. And they were collecting money for that, unbeknownst to the high command.
Wow.
The important thing is a lot of these construction sites were run by some of the biggest dons in Jamaica. Right? And they were paying them good money. Not just for that, but there were hit teams being assigned out of that and hits being performed. The last hit was on a Spanish Town Don that ended up with 3 people being killed. The Don himself and at least one police officer who had made the hit. There was a police officer guarding the Don. And a civilian who just happened to be in the vicinity was shot during the chase by the police officer who had been guarding the Don. So I'm just bringing these things out to show you that the JCF has massive problems because to date, that case, they disbanded them without publishing any investigations, which I believe they just didn't want to have investigations because they knew what was happening out there.
And this concept of police, whether sometimes it's overt corruption or just they're completely inept, is something that we struggle with all over the world. So, caller, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning again, as you have sounding a personal guest on there, and the antidote story he told before this one seemed to me to involve sexual deviance, with a young girl being, knocked up. Let me get wordy. Seeming like all colleagues in America, they call it line of blue, participating in protecting culprit. Mike, and I often think our own particular circumstances here in the Cayman Islands. It seems to be very sensitive, but I'll just say, but I mean, for professional reasons, it's supposed to be sensitive even. But how does this woman have any advice to give the country as he is, this is advice to me, as to how we should be vetting as the organization of uniformed services and for sexual deviance among the troops, and how does the public help by becoming some sort of watchdog? What would a non-initiated person look for as a sign of something not being right when it comes to that kind of nasty engagement? Because if you got a teenager, a police shouldn't one that would be engaging with her or him sexually. So if I mean, it's not a clear question, but I guess he's a Caribbean person. He can get where I want to go.
Yes. All right. Thank you for that, caller. So we have had a couple instances where I mentioned one earlier with, again, he was eventually exonerated of the murder of actually shooting someone in the line of duty in Jamaica. But we've had other cases. More recently, there's been an allegation in an ongoing murder trial. There's a gentleman who's being accused here in the Cayman Islands of shooting and killing his own son. And one of the witnesses, who happens to be the baby mother of the father, has come forward and testified that one of the reasons why she didn't help the police earlier on in their investigation is that a police officer approached her at a local store in West Bay and basically threatened her on behalf of the accused and said that, she needed to keep her mouth shut. Last month, we had a JDF, I guess, former soldier who left the jurisdiction without going through the correct protocols of resigning. And he was hired here in the Cayman Islands to work in the local boys' home, So when we see situations like this and these cases pop up of where we have obviously misstepped, we haven't done our due diligence. To this caller's point, even as close as we are to Jamaica, clearly we still, because it's very, very attractive for a Jamaican officer to apply with either, whether it's the police service, the prison service, because number one, let's just be honest, it's a fairly easy job. It's not as dangerous as even back home. And the pay is really, really decent. You get your full pension, for health insurance coverage. So if you've got a family, they're completely covered under health insurance. It's a government job. And it's seen as something to attain to. And oftentimes, because of how they do shift work, they can then moonlight and have side businesses and side jobs the other 4 days of the week that they're not even on shift. So it's a lucrative position, and it attracts a lot of people, and it attracts, I'm sure, some good officers. But as we've seen, it also attracts people who probably the undesirables. So is there anything that you can suggest that we should be doing in order to better vet the applicants? Like in the case of the JDF officer, when I did the digging on that case, that was a bit of a CMR exclusive. We recognize that the mistake that was made, and I think this happens a lot, is he came in initially to work as a security guard. And so people come in and take minimum wage jobs, but it's a stepping stool to be in the country. And then they just wait their time, and eventually they move from one employer to the next, and they apply to government positions, and eventually they get into the government job, which is what they really, really wanted initially. So what government did is they didn't go back on his resume and said, oh, right, you're a JDF officer, let us contact them and check any of your record or whatever to see that you had actually left the JDF without the proper release papers and authorization. They just relied on calling the local security company who could say, oh yeah, he worked with us for a year and he was perfectly fine standing up at the front of, a building doing nothing all day. So do you guys have any recommendations? Is there more that we could be doing to vet individuals? Mr. Nelson, you mentioned, I think it was you that mentioned that the Caribbean in particular is ripe for criminal activity. So we have visitors who come, who are sexual predators, who specifically target places like Cayman, like Jamaica, because they see it as being easy. We oftentimes are not talking to each other. We don't have unified databases, no fingerprinting system. We're not checking, is this person on a sexual predator list somewhere in America, because they have done this before. And so they come in and they can easily just undercover, be around our children, be at tourist resorts, and have access to individuals. And they know that our policing systems are not necessarily the best in the world. So they can often go undetected for long periods of time.
When it comes to employment and employment screening, it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we did in the intelligence community was we would do the actual background check. We would call up the references, we go visit, and then we'd ask that reference to give us the name of somebody who did not like this individual.
Mm.
So we're getting a cross current of background information. Why didn't you like this individual? What was it about them? Because now we're speaking to character, and Will can come in because the FBI did a lot of these things. My job was to adjudicate what the background investigators found, and sometimes it required that I do what is called an enhanced background check, and I had all kinds of magic databases I could go into, pull information, and I could figure out what aliases people were using, how many bank accounts they had, stuff like that. But the bottom line is, once we had a complete background check, and we had certain red flags, we would then do questioning while it's sitting on a polygraph machine.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's there that you saw the deviation in answers. And it's there that it told us, and Jamaica did that recently. They had a class of 120 police cadets, and they had to kick 80 something of them out for failing the polygraph. Found out some of them were gang members.
Oh my gosh.
And you have a lot of that goes on. Gang members are told to go infiltrate the police.
Wow.
And then in turn, they then pass through the academy. They're fully active. Now you got somebody on the inside. So these are the kinds of things that you have to watch out for. When it comes to the predators coming into the countries, this is one of the reasons why we submitted to Senator Tim Kaine here in Washington a plan to have that database expanded throughout the entire Western Hemisphere, not just the U.S., Canada, but to the entire Latin American Caribbean region.
Right.
Not just CARICOM, but everybody.
Yes.
And you need that to be able to identify when predators are coming into your country. You won't know who these people are because these people are paying the parents of young kids to have a good time with their young kids.
Right.
And if the parents need the money, they're not going to report it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a system where you train hotel staff, airport workers, anybody to be able to spot when there's a kid traveling and the kid is under duress, right? The kid is sulking, arms folded, looking around, can't speak. These are some of the signs. So if your people are well trained, especially in the hotels, because that's how we caught one guy in Montego Bay, that the hotel workers actually saw the molestation at the kiddie pool, and they were able to report it. But then you have to have the laws that allow the police not just to lock these people up and deport them, but for them to serve some hard time, and then you kick them out. If they're from the U.S. will then rearrest them for traveling to have sex with minors. And they get up to 10 years then in a U.S. jail.
Wow.
So
the sharing of information and the sort of more ready access to information really being critical for crime fighting, both around the region and around the entire world, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, we see where it happens so quickly with the financial services world after 9/11, because there was motivation there, especially on the American side, to, you know, trace terrorist funds all over the world. So we know that it can be done. You know, but it's just more, I suppose, the willpower, the political willpower in a lot of instances to actually get it done. So folks, you're listening to the Cold Hard Truth here on Bobo 89.1 FM. And of course, we're also on social media on YouTube and Facebook. Let's just take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and read some of your additional comments. And we have about 20 minutes or so left in the program as well. So big shout out to Crichton Properties for being one of our sponsors here on the Cold Hard Truth.
Crichton Properties is one of Cayman's most trusted real estate companies for over 50 years. We offer a diverse selection of property listings and help our clients navigate the world of buying or selling their properties with confidence. Crichton is a name you can trust with our excellent customer service and family-friendly touch. Contact us today to list your home, land, or condo for sale by calling 949-5250 or email info@crichtonproperties.com. Crichton Properties, a trusted Cereba member.
Healthy Life app is now My HSA Cayman. Securely access your health information and COVID-19 vaccine QR code anytime, anywhere. You can get the My HSA Cayman app by following the easy steps. Step 1. Search My HSA Cayman in your app store. If you already have Healthy Life, open the app and you will be prompted to download the My HSA Cayman app. Step 2. Download the My HSA Cayman app. Once download is complete, search for Cayman Islands Health Services Authority. Step 3. Login. Enter your username and password. This is the same username and password used on the Healthy Life app or desktop portal account. Having trouble with your login? Reset your password. Click Forgot Password on the login page and follow the prompts. If you're still having difficulties, email portalinfo@hsa.ky or visit the portal FAQ page at www.hsa.ky. Sign up for My HSA Patient Portal online or on site at any of our registration counters.
The Cold Hard Truth is Cayman's #1 talk show since it debuted in March 2020. According to independent research, we are the most listened to talk show in 2021, and most people prefer us to any other options on island. We tackle tough issues some days, and other times have fun and lighthearted discussions. But most importantly, the Cold Hard Truth is here for you. Thank you for your support as we continue to be the voice of the people in 2022 and beyond.
Hey Cayman, los saluda DJ Yoyo, The Energy, y estás escuchando The Cold Hard Truth con la voz del pueblo, Sandra Hill, todas las mañanas, 7:30 AM, only on Bobo, 89.1 FM.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. If you have not been tuned in, you've been missing a real treat here today because we've had, a really interesting conversation with some experts around the world joining us, talking about the Donna Lee Donaldson case, a young lady who's missing in Jamaica, but more generally, just even how to address criminality in our countries and some of the concerns that some of you have about the system and how the police works and operates. And I know a lot of those concerns we have right here in the Cayman Islands as well. So we've got Marshall who says Dons, JDF, and politicians all work hand in hand, just a bunch of corrupt criminals. That's why Jamaica will never be any better when it comes to crime and criminals. Good morning to Ryan. Ryan says most of the negative comments are coming from a friend or a family member of the accused. Don't listen, do God's work. Joseph says, Sandra, don't pay that fool gal any mind. Joseph also goes on to say, JCF is the most corrupted police force in the Caribbean. I'm a Jamaican, and I'm telling you that. Anthony Blair, good morning. Anthony says, great minds and sharing of intelligent information. Great show this morning. Do have these guests back on in the future, CMR. Good morning to Miss Ruby. She says, the one day I have a lie-in and I missed this show. Ruby, not to worry. Since it's on social media, you can always hit the rewind button afterwards and go back and have a listen. We also have Tashir, who says, so Jamaican on a C, say Jamaican, I run right, because everyone see and I talk, not only locally, but internationally as well. See it there? All right, folks. So do let us know. We have some people who are in the back studio. I'm not sure if they're trying to actually join the show. We have a Hines, but their device isn't connected, which means they can't join. But we also have an Antonio. So Antonio, if you're trying to join the show, maybe just send us a back chat message and let us know. I see Kevin is reaching out to you. Doesn't look like he just exited, so it doesn't look like he was trying to join. But yeah, there's multiple ways that you can join. So you can actually come on video link if you'd like to engage with our guests or to ask a question. And then Marshall says, yes, indeed, this has been a really good show this morning. So, there's so many things that need to be addressing. I feel like we've only touched a little bit on this, but this runs deep. Aldine says that she's watching from Toronto this morning. Thank you so much, Aldine, for joining the program. One conversation at a time is how I see that we start to chip away at some of the issues that we have in our community. So, folks, if you have any questions, the phone lines are also open. 936-2626 is the telephone number. Morning to Debbie. Debbie says, Sandy, I want to thank you and your wonderful guests for such an informative show. So as we start to move towards the 10 o'clock hour, and we do have to wrap up the conversation, Jeffrey, what do you think is going to happen to this Donna Lee case? I mean, are we expecting some big breakthrough that just hasn't happened yet? We know that the police in this day and age don't necessarily need a body to be able to declare someone dead and to follow through with a criminal prosecution, and indeed even win without having a body. What do you foresee if you had a looking glass? What do you think is going to happen here?
I've been putting on this to see if I can see through the lens of the Jamaica constable reporting. But let me say something to you. My personal opinion, and my good friend Wilfred Rattigan and Herbert Nelson can tell you, my take on all of this is, if the JCF do not come up with something, they're gonna be, and I'll say they're gonna be right in the street in Jamaica. Jamaicans has reached a point where they have enough is enough. It can't be that you have the force that is there to serve and protect the people of our country, and something of that magnitude happen, and the case just go cold like the girl Dean, although it is a total different case. It can't be that we continue like this day after day, year after year, and expect the same thing. We come August 6th, we're 60 years old. And the question must ask, what has the government, successive government, what have they done for the people of Jamaica?
Yes.
You can't have a country where you're leading and you can't secure your own people. Something is fundamentally wrong with the governing of any country. You can't secure your own people. And with the case so far, and I will say this.
Yes.
I will say this to Donna Lee's mother, Miss Sophia. You need to get outside help. If you do not get outside help, this case will not go anywhere. The corruption is sting to the highest heaven. I love my country. No matter, listen to me. Let us speak to Cayman, to Jamaicans in Cayman, and the Jamaicans around the world. Jeffrey Tavares is a patriotic Jamaican. I love my country. But I will not stand by and sit down and say, okay, everything is okay. No.
Yes.
Everything is not okay with our country. And if we don't speak out and have solutions, as what my good friend Rattigan keep on saying to us, we need to come together as Jamaicans, push ourselves in. The Minister of National Security, and I don't want to say national insecurity this morning because I don't want, when I come off of the air, I get, some phone calls. But the Minister of National Security refused to accept outside help of Jamaicans who go overseas, who have become lawyers, doctors, who work with Homeland Security, who are FBI agents and former FBI agents. They refuse to get the help because why? They don't want the level of corruption to come out. And the corruption in our country stinks to the highest heaven.
We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Miss Sandra. What a nice program this morning.
Thank you so much.
I got up late, but these old phones, people be calling me and say, "Hey, you listening to Hard Truth this morning?" Blah 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 blah. But it's talking about the fingerprint system. I asked that question a few days ago on another radio station, and I kind of didn't accept. But I missed the gentleman. I don't know if he's still on. I wanted to ask, and maybe you can answer what it is that is keeping us. I mean, we're an island, but then we're considered as a country, as we international. And why is it that we cannot have fingerprinting at the ports and at the ports with our photographs taken as well? What is keeping the Cayman Islands from doing that? Jamaica, Honduras, Nicaragua, Cuba, and all of them are big. We all okay, yeah, we small, but we got a lot of illegal people in this country, and that would slowly we would know who is who. There are people here that we don't know who they are, where they're from.
That's a good question.
So
and it's an even better question because we literally spent millions of dollars trying to secure this system, and to date, nothing has been implemented. Caller, we do have another caller who's trying to get in. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, but can you see if you can get answers for that from me, please?
I will. Thank you, dear. All right, we've got another caller who is joining us this morning. Good morning, caller, and welcome to the program.
Hello?
Hi, morning.
Yes. Am I in the air?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I was saying that certainly the fingerprint system is a good idea, but what's also needed, like you kind of alluded to it before, is a connection between the various ports.
Yes.
So we can have access to these information. So certainly that is good, but taking it back further, it will make it a lot better.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, caller. All right, folks. So 936-2626 is the telephone number as well, if you'd like to call in to the program. I think that question about the fingerprinting system is one for our own Cayman, security forces and agencies. So we have Darlene says, great show today, CMR. Thanks for your amazing guests. Christine says, first time listening, learning a lot about what's happened and what's happening in my country, in Jamaica. We have Michelle, who's actually watching from Jamaica. Pauline is watching from Arizona. Dean says, me too, Ruby. I'm late to a very great story this morning. So yes, folks, you can always hit that rewind button. So Pauline says, so true. Hallelujah. Probably to the point that Mr. Jeffrey was making. Forrest says both of police involved in Donna Lee's disappearances know where they put her body. Again, a lot of people at this point are just presuming that it's only a recovery effort at this particular stage.
If we recover the body.
Yeah. But I mean, families want to at least be able to have a proper burial and funeral service. There's always questions when you don't even have a body. So for sure. So Tashir says it's the same case because she has also gone missing. Nadine, thank you so much. Dean says where there's no vision, the people perish. Yes. Ruby is commenting, two of you wearing pink shirts this morning, liking the attire.
We didn't plan this at all.
Yes. Pauline says that PNP and JLP, the police, the lawyers are all the same. So there's a real distrust of the system. Andrea says the corruption stinks bad in Jamaica, and we all need to call a spade a spade. Enough is enough.
Indeed.
Nadine says you are correct, sir. And so, this is a very interesting conversation. Also, your last comments there, really where you say that, listen, even as Caymanians, we have Caymanians who live all over the world. Some have moved to the UK and to Europe, and some are in the US. We can't sit back and not be concerned about what is happening in our own countries, because that's how, it goes to hell in a handbasket. So you've got to be willing to call people to account, whether it's the elected officials, being the politicians, or it's the various agencies who are taking millions upon millions of dollars of our money every single year, claiming that they need this money to be able to crime fight on their behalf to make our community safe. So just to show you how international this whole conversation has gone, we have a news story out of the Star where this lady in Trinidad has actually stepped forward, and she's offering a $5 million reward for information leading to, I guess, an arrest, or at least even the recovery of a body in the disappearance of Donna Lee Donaldson. So, other islands, regular citizens are stepping forward, and they are saying, this is a horrific situation. And this woman, in this case, this woman says that she has a 5-year-old daughter, and she's appealing to anyone who may have, any information so that Donna Lee can be found, and she wants justice to be served. She's not necessarily connected to this case in any other way, but she says it just hits close to home, as she grew up in a country where incidents of kidnapping and women and children often go missing are rife. And she's talking about her own country in Trinidad. And she goes on to say that in Trinidad, it's the same thing. Women go missing by the numbers. Children go missing by the numbers. It's the same. This is something that hits near for me. And it also made mention that just 4 days ago, the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian reported that 13-year-old Marlon Blanco had gone missing. And that was just, the latest and an example of many, many young people and children and women in particular who go missing as well. So it's something that is being felt across the region. She goes on to say that this is a woman, this is somebody's daughter, somebody's niece. And so there's a reason to be concerned. And she says, furthermore, I'm from the Caribbean. This could have been my sister. This could have been my aunt. This could have been anyone close to me. And I think really that is the level of conversations that we need to be having, not seeking to separate ourselves just because, you're on a different island or even regionally. People be like, oh, well, I live in West Bay. That incident happened in Northside. I don't care. It's like we cannot be, that small-minded, because we are all folks connected. So we've got about 4 minutes left
Sandy,
in the program. Get some final comments. Yes.
Okay. Mars wrote in, and she basically said that you should just come to the Cayman Islands. And I think you did an outstanding job in addressing her concerns. But and let me just add to that. If you look at proximity culture and the opportunities presented in islands, you're going to have Jamaicans coming over, right? The good and the bad. Now, the good we can all based on the international formula used to calculate homicides. It's done per 100,000. Now, the Cayman Islands, based on the research I did, I think you have like 67,000, somewhere around there, less than 70,000 people, right? But the formula is based on per 100,000. The Cayman Islands is 8. So if people will die as homicides, right? In Jamaica, it's 49. And so if you're going to get the good and the bad, you better be prepared. And going back to what the going back to what the Cayman police should be doing, I mean, they should be conducting liaison with their Jamaican counterparts. through an intelligence center, and we can. That's another program to talk about how you develop an intelligence center, so you can share information. You can acquire the idea that you're an island by yourself, and I know you don't support this because you've said it. Because this is going to happen, and it's going to get worse. So the sooner to be in the.
Absolutely. Well, again, we've got a couple minutes left. Our radio listeners will be cut off because the window there is very, very precise and tight, but we'll continue for a few more minutes on social media. But I do want to thank our guests for coming on, and I hope that this will not be the last time that we'll be having a conversation with them, because this has been incredibly engaging and educational, even for myself. Mr. Nelson, what are your thoughts today as we start to wrap up the conversation?
I know that the focus, first of all, I want to thank you for having me and my partners on, because I think this international forum does spread the word and give some impact to what we've been preaching here in Washington, maybe to the diaspora at large, but now we have a larger community that we can speak to. And I appreciate you for having us on. One of the things you have to look at in the Caribbean police forces, English-speaking ones, and maybe some of the others, a lot of them are made up of Jamaicans, believe it or not. I'm not saying Jamaicans are spreading ill will through the police force dispersal, but a lot of those officers left the job because they were dissatisfied, they were afraid. And part of CARICOM impacts training should be those officers need to be debriefed, even though they're joining a different police force. Because if you have knowledge of crime and criminality, and you come to another police force, you need to be debriefed. And then that information is then passed back to the respective Caribbean country so that that police force can act on it. If the police force is corrupt, you want to pass it to the ministry responsible for the police force. And here in Washington at Institute of Caribbean Studies, we're looking at the entire Caribbean, not just Jamaica. So we know there are issues associated with other Caribbean islands that stem from police moving from Jamaica to that island, or stems from hitmen moving between Jamaica and Haiti, Jamaica and St. Kitts, Jamaica and Cayman Islands, Jamaica and the Bahamas, and other Caribbean islands, so on and so forth. So it has become an international issue within the Caribbean. And when you have a situation like that, you want your police forces working even closer. And in Jamaica, they created MOCA, Major Organized Crime Unit.
Right.
And they're separated from the JCF. And I'm hoping that other islands will have even 5 individuals designated for their major organized crime. And in addition to that, you really and truly need to have an investigative body that investigates your police and that will take action. You have to have the justice system that will take action against these bad apples, because they'll infect the entire lot. But
absolutely. And even in terms of that, here in the Cayman Islands, that's been one of the areas in which we have struggled with, because there was this commission that was supposed to be set up to police the police, because there's always a question of who's policing the police. And it took us forever to get this organized. And I believe it was only just recently, maybe in the last couple of weeks, that the governor's office talked about this commission finally being put in place. I mean, this was years after, all of us have been asking, who is policing the police? When you have a complaint against the RCIPS, who do you go to for help? And so let me just try to, if I can quickly tell you guys the name of this commission, but it's shocking that, right. So the governor just on July the 8th announces this new police service commission website. Well, the website is up finally, but it's just, I mean, it's unbelievable that our options are so incredibly limited of, who we can turn to get help. Now, of course, one of the questions that people have asked, which is an interesting question, is the governor himself chairs the PSC, the Police Service Commission, but he also has responsibility for national security, which includes the RCIPS. So people wonder if there is sufficient separation of, for any potential conflicts, because ultimately the RCIPS and the police commissioner is hired by him and answers to him. And does he also, as the oversight body, have sufficient separation to be able to do, an effective job? It's a question that people have asked. I don't really know what the answer is, but I think it's certainly worth having, a discussion on another day. So
just a quick comment, Sandy.
Yes.
We are encouraging every island in the Caribbean to have their own national integrity action agency.
Mm-hmm.
And the NIA is in Jamaica, Dr. Trevor Monroe. You've got similar, and these groups belong to Transparency International.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they do the rating for corruption worldwide.
Right.
So there's one in Trinidad and there's one in Guyana. But that's not enough. Every island should have an attorney or somebody similar with some legal background, the ability to work on anti-corruption issues.
Sandra,
Yes.
before you go, I remember when I was in the Cayman Islands, Dr. Trevor Monroe came to Cayman to gave a speech about integrity. I thought the Cayman Islands was setting up a integrity commission. I thought that was that was the case why he came up.
Yes. Well, this is what happens with ideas. There's a lot of good ideas floating around, but the implementation of them, and to put them, set them up in an effective way where they're actually doing something is a totally different situation. And that's the role. Jeffrey, is someone who is in the space of media, and you have your own podcast show. That's also the important role that media plays to highlight, to inform people, and to also agitate for change, and to highlight these deficiencies where they exist, and to really call attention to whether it's a missing Donna Lee or the blind university student or police corruption and all these other things. A lot of things are not known to the public until somebody brings it to their attention.
Right.
So, I think that we all have important roles to play. So let me thank you, gentlemen, for joining.
May I say something before you go?
Yes.
I just want to make something categorically clear. When I speak about my country, I'm not speaking about any ill will about my country.
Yes.
I want people, the viewers and listeners, to understand. I'm a Jamaican, and I will remain a Jamaican, as what my good friend Dr. Ibang said. We came here by labor pain, not by aeroplane.
Yes.
And Jamaica is in a crisis, and we need to speak out against it.
Yes.
And we need to do something against it. So with my good friend Wilfred Rattigan, my other good friend Mr. Herb Nelson, and our good friend Dr. Rupert Francis, we are coming together. We're going to form a team, and we're going to have solutions. Not only chat like how the Baroness of the Commonwealth just chat. We're going to try and do something about it. So let me be clear. We're going to try our never best to do something about what is going on in our country. Yes, Wilfred?
Yes.
Sandy, before you go, I just want to thank you for having me on, and I hope this is not the last time. And regarding the question about the fingerprint, what I would suggest to that caller and to the people of Cayman is that your country is covered, the FBI has territorial responsibility over your country out of Barbados. The FBI office that covers the Cayman is located in Bridgetown, Barbados, in the embassy. Right. Contact them. They will help you to set up the CODIS system, which is a DNA system, and your fingerprint system. So if there's any issue, government will readily step in and assist with that. So again, have them contact the FBI legal attache's office in Bridgetown, Barbados.
Wow, thank you for that. I mean, again, we had a system that supposedly was purchased. I don't know whatever happened to it. We've spent millions of dollars on CCTV systems that when a crime is committed and somebody here has gone missing, then they say, oh, well, the cameras weren't working. I mean, it's just unbelievable because Cayman is often seen as a resource-rich country. And we have limited resources, but certainly I think we do have access probably to a bit more than some other jurisdictions, and yet we still see the missteps and the wastage of money. I do see Dr. Rupert Francis. I don't know if he wanted to join the conversation. Let me just add him in.
Wow.
Dr. Rupert, did you want to join the conversation at all this morning? Maybe not.
Dr. Francis?
Dr. Francis, can you hear us? So maybe he was just jumping on to listen, but
Okay.
you know, he could have jumped on as a guest as well. All right, so
I just
gentlemen,
want to say, Sandra, that I don't want to take over your show. I just want to say thanks to thank you for having me on. And as usual, don't be a stranger, you can reach out to me at any time. I want to say good morning to KP Duval, Stephen, Miss Eva, and Dr. Tomlinson, Dr. E. Banks, my other family over there in the Cayman Islands. Miss you all. I'll come over there one of these days soon.
all right, sounds good. Well, thank you guys again for coming in the program this morning. I share Jeffrey's comments, and I think Mr. Williford, Mr. Herb, the same thing. The reason why folks were having these conversations is because of love of country. You know, when you love someone or something, you can defend it, but you also need to be honest in your defense of your country. And if there are cracks, and if there are big holes in the system, whether it's judiciary, the police, whatever, you have to be willing to call those things out with a vision of hopefully, fixing those situations, because that's how you become better. That's how you become a better country, a better jurisdiction, and a better, just people. So I don't think anyone should ever call into question whether or not you love your country because you're offering constructive comments or constructive criticism of your country. That in and of itself is more than enough proof, in my opinion, that you definitely love your country. So Dean is suggesting a part 2 to this conversation. What I will say, Dean, is you know me already. No conversation can ever be had in full in a couple hours. These are ongoing conversations that we need to constantly have. And we need to chip away at discussions. The average person, it takes 20 times of you telling them something for it to even properly sink in and for them to go, oh, okay. They have a little bit of an aha moment in terms of accepting concepts and ideas and changes in the way forward. So this will definitely not be the last time that we will have these guests on. We're always looking to elevate the conversation here on this program and to take it to the next level. And that means bringing on experts as we have this morning. So fear not, Dean, we will definitely have them back and others as well. Ruby's asking about collaborative efforts. She says if there's any way that the Jamaican forces can team up with the Caymanian forces to locate missing Jamaicans in Cayman. So, I think that, again, jurisdictions need to be talking across the board with each other, whether it's missing persons or, one of the things that I'm always surprised at is the second that Jamaica puts up a most wanted list, I'm surprised that the Cayman authorities don't share that as well, because the chances of them jumping in a canoe boat and coming here is actually pretty high, So we've just discovered that a couple of weeks ago with the arrest of at least one person. And we know that there are other criminals here who would have come in with him that the police have not yet been able to locate. So yes, put the pictures all over social media, put them out there so that people know who they're looking for. Cayman is a small jurisdiction, but it is obvious that people can still hide, and the criminal underbelly knows how to maneuver in a way that, they keep under the radar a lot of the times. People say to me, how can someone overstay in the Cayman Islands for 10 and 15 years? And yet we've had recent examples of where those individuals have been in the court system. So it's happening, it's quite crazy. And they're out there, they're working and they're making money and so forth. So it's unbelievable. Salvin says from history, there'll be enough separation depending on the officer in question. So it relates to the Oversight Commission. Again, oversight is always important. Judith says we need justice for all the people that are missing. Miss Fiona is listening from Guyana this morning and says, and they have so much corruption. Ruby says, call the FBI. You know, Ruby, I know Ruby said, call the FBI, call Jamaica, call the British.
There's one right there.
We have to ultimately, yes, you can call on these agencies, but Ruby, the truth of the matter is, if we are not internally able to agitate for change and to bring about some of that change, yes, those agencies are there, and I'm sure, you know, they're willing to help as much as they can. But let's face it, the FBI probably has their hands full because they have a shooting every other week and every other day, I should say, in the US as well. So they have their, all of these agencies have their hands full. So I think it's fair to say that we also need to take full responsibility for the effectiveness of our agencies. Dr. Rupert, did you want to come on the program for a few minutes? I see you there now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm sorry, my internet was a bit spotty, but I think I'm better now.
Yes, not a problem. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Once my colleagues that I see are there, I'm normally just right behind them, so I'm good.
Very good. So I don't know if you had an opportunity to listen to the conversation this morning. We're off radio now, but we still have over 320 people listening on the live stream. So do give us your thoughts on some of the points that were touched on today.
Well, to be quite honest with you, it was at the same points that we dealt with yesterday in regards to the missing, quote unquote, missing young lady, Donna Lee Donaldson, and the state of crime in the West Indies, the Caribbean, and Jamaica in particular. Is that good? Okay, good. Well, my perspective is very similar to my colleagues on the program right now, in that I think that we are hitting the point of a pandemic, or further than that, when it comes to crime in Jamaica. And for such a beautiful, small country that has such an impact on the world, we have to do better. This is not about the people everybody has to be involved. But it takes leadership to have that done. You know, people have to think outside the box. You can't sit down and go cry on a bed or something like that and then expect it to happen. Not going to happen. You have to go out there and consciously, you have to have the will. You have to encourage the people. You have to build their morale. Whether it is the police, and the citizens and so on, you have to look for the signals. When there's a lot of disrespect in anything, and I'm not being political, I hope I'm not, because this is, I am just saying that whenever people feel disenfranchised, they feel they have no hope. You have a case like this, for example, in regards to Donna Lee Donaldson. And as Mr. Rattigan said yesterday, even a young child could figure that one out. And yet, there seems to be interruption. There seems to be attempts to manipulate the outcome of what is happening. And you have people, and you cannot have that. Nobody's having any confidence. You can't have your girls or anybody, your children down there or whatever, and somebody does something to them deliberately, premeditatedly, for example, allegedly, of course, and you can't find the information. You have evidence, you don't go after it judiciously. You're spending a lot of money on the police force, right? So what are we? And we have competent police personnel. So why aren't we giving them the opportunity to do their work and to support the police? You have them be one last thing. The police are underpaid very, very badly. And if you give anybody a job, let us say you take a car into a shop just as an and you take it in there, and this man knows that whenever you come, you always want to shortchange him on the price. He's going to give you short-range work, okay? So my view is that we really need to look at the police force, look at other agencies that are working night and day to resolve these issues. And in that group, you have a group that is trying to destroy it. Why, I don't know. And so those are the issues, I think, that are main and we need to advocate now. Now that the people are recognizing on social media and pushing, we have to continue the momentum. In the war, they say maintain the momentum. And if you don't maintain the momentum, you're going to lose. And we are not intending to lose this time. And one more thing, Mr. Rattigan said something yesterday I didn't know he would say. He said he's willing to go down there and fight for Donna Lee. And I hope people have reached out to him on that matter. And I hope the diaspora will, for the first time, speak with one voice. That's my charge on all that. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And definitely, gentlemen, we will be no strangers to each other now that we've had the opportunity to make each other's acquaintance. We will have you back on the program. I had a listener who sent this message on social media. She said, "Morning, I'm so glad that you schooled this fool." This was in relation to the young lady who's like, "Why are we talking about this?" She says, "Anyway, I don't know where you're getting these guests from, but damn girl, you keep surprising me and outdoing yourself. I don't even bother with CNN and CNS anymore. My new crack pipe is CMR. Keep up the great work. Proud to call you my friend." So, and of course, she is speaking figuratively, meaning that she's addicted to the program. So, again, thank you so much to all of our engaging listeners who tune in here every single morning, who are also on Bobo. We appreciate, your listenership, your participation, your feedback, and a big thank you to all of our guests. They are very, very busy individuals. They took some time out of their schedules to have a bit of a conversation with us this morning, and we'll definitely invite them back. And listen, we try to do this every Wednesday. Sometimes it's hard to find guests, but Caribbean Connections, this is a perfect example about what Caribbean Connections is all about. It's about gapping that bridge between us and the rest of the Caribbean. So Fiona, thank you so much. Irvelyn says, awesome show. Ms. Dawn says, thanks. So again, make sure you put a little comment in the section thanking our guests who again took time out to be with us. So thank you, gentlemen, and have an absolutely wonderful day.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you very much.
Right. And we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Don't forget, tomorrow's discussion, something else that's plaguing the Caribbean. We will have a guest on, an expert on. It's all about sargassum. That nasty stuff that's in the ocean. So make sure you tune in for that as well, folks.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.